Gather around, freaks. It's Thursday, Thursday night. You know what time it is. It's time to gather around the internet fire and the internet radio because we're here and we're talking about a movie that everybody's seen or maybe you haven't. It's time for. Hey, did you see this one?
Once upon a time, movie magic was dwindling, and things were changing. And this month, Stephen Waters and Hey, Did You See This One? Would like to take you back there. Take you on a trip down memory lane to revisit some of their favorite movies from the late 1900s. From cult classics to box office hits, they'll explore the mysticism of this iconic era of film history. Tune in to relive the magic of the previous century in the nostalgic 90s.
Flying pain!
Hey, don't open that! It's an alien planet! Is there air? You don't know!
Seems okay.
Oh, hello, everyone, and welcome to Hey, Did You See This One? It is episode 136, season 2, episode 36. I don't know, it's a lot of episodes. This week, we are talking about the film Galaxy Quest. It is Steve's birthday month, and still, he chose the 90s nostalgia for this month. And this week on the show, we have a brand new guest, first-time guest, first-time listener. I don't know. Please welcome to the show, famous paint geek, Jenny R. Johnson. I just realized that we both use the R in our mind.
I noticed that. Yeah.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, Jenny is a painter, does the scenes from the multiverse. More cheering. I actually have one of your prints right here. I pull it down off the wall.
What?
Gonna show? It's not. There's just there. Okay, well,
there's Deanna Troy.
Yes.
Deanna Troy's cleavage.
Is this one? Yeah, that's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. So you're well known on TikTok and Instagram for your paintings. You're a avid convention goer where you sell your paintings. I've seen your stall, like when you set your stall up, and it's crazy. Like you have all your paintings up and your prints for sale. I've always wondered, do you sell your originals?
I do.
Do you refer to it as a stall or a booth?
I don't know. I don't know.
It all sounds like she's set up in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Generally, I do say a booth, but stall works.
If you want to know what the painting I just held up is, it's on your shirt.
That one. Yeah.
I also just noticed that. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. You're our highest profile guest to date, which is
great. God.
That's right.
Wow.
I invited you here to bolster our numbers. Bolster? That's okay. But before we talk about the film Galaxy Quest, I have some housekeeping that I have to do. This is so each and every week what I do is on Monday and Tuesday I put up the poster or a part of the poster, and I have people on online guests what the poster is. And a lot of the time, the first day, I always make it so vague that people are like, what? I don't know. It's just a close-up of a t-shirt. This time, nobody got it on the first day. So I had to make it a little bit easier. And once I put that little streak of like purple off of Alan Rickman's costume from the other poster, they started to flood in. So this might take a second, but this is, hey, did you guess this one?
Congratulations! You have successfully guessed the correct answer, which is the answer you provided. Congratulations!
Congratulations! That's right, Jenny. Also, if you didn't know, we have sound clips for like everything.
So far, I enjoy them very much. Like, that intro video, I was just like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I'm so excited about this.
Steve makes those and he wows me every single time.
Like,
thanks,
dude.
Thanks. Thank you.
We want our guests to come back. We want our guests to have a good time and come back. So we want to wow them.
Done. Wow.
This is very much just me talking. This is sort of our fan interaction stuff. So bear with me because there's a lot this week.
Amazing.
Gordon McDonald got it. Jenny, you may remember Gordon McDonald from Eastside Mario's. He gets it pretty much every week.
What?
Yeah, he didn't have a message this week. He usually says something pretty out of pocket, but he, if you can imagine, he didn't
just
have
wrote the word
this week.
diarrhea over and over again for some reason.
The insane scrawlings of a madman. Next up, Steve Broadbent, also known as Olins. He's from Australia. He used to hang out at Freeman's when I worked there, and he was there so frequently that he had his own plaque at his seat. Yeah, so if you go to Freeman's downtown, you'll see a plaque that says Olins on it, and you'll be like, "What?" Now you know. He said, "I literally fell asleep watching it last night," and then he went on to say, "The universe is written in the language of mathematics. Its characteristics, triangles, circles, other geometric figures. Without mathematics, one wanders around in a dark labyrinth." So that's pretty deep.
That's a movie of some kind.
And then he goes on to say, Wilson from Home Improvement.
Oh,
I guess that's
never mind. It's
quote
a
from
Home
him.
Improvement. Got it.
And then he goes on to say, also Tim Allen was nothing without Earl Hindman. I assume that's Wilson.
Or maybe it's Al.
Or yeah. Everyone, no, that's not his name. I can't remember it now, but that's not his name.
Who cares?
All right.
Who cares? Everyone only watched Home Improvement for Wilson's wise words of stolen wisdom. He is very much missed. He did pass away a few years ago, as I recall. Nicholas Latimer got it and says, Galaxy Quest, my message is intergalactic peace. I mean, I can stand by that. Movies by Doug, Movies Podcast, proprietor, got it correct. He said, we always sub back and asked us to follow him, which I did. And of course, watch a movie you've never seen, which is sort of the premise of this show. The reason it's called Hey, Did You See This One is because we kind of came up with the idea of like, when you're at a party and you're talking to somebody and you're just sort of like, hey, have you ever seen Galaxy Quest? That's sort of like the conceit of this show. My friend Brenton Brown got it. He didn't have a message. Julia Clahane got it. She wanted to shout out the Pint Size Comedy Show every Tuesday night at the Celtic Corner in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Something tells me that her partner Stu put her up to that because he does stand up at that event.
Oh my God.
That's right. Yeah. Thomas Hybers, he just wanted to say hello, chat. And Craig Webster, friend of the show, former guest of the show, and my former tag team partner for Blossom Buddies, he wanted to say, I love you very much to anyone out there who needs to hear it. So that's pretty nice as well.
Also, my friend Chad messaged me privately and was like, it's got to be Galaxy Quest, right? And I was like, you got it. Ding, ding, ding. Congratulations.
What's your message? And then they never message back. It's weird.
He just said this is the best Star Trek movie ever made. And I said, oh, yeah, true.
You might say it's a love letter to Star Trek.
God.
Steve, right before this, Steve was like, "Do not call it that." I was like, I had no intention. I was gonna say it's a love letter to Babylon 5.
It's just one of those things that everybody says, and it's like, okay, we got it. Say something.
But with
new.
that, we can. Oh yeah, sorry. Before we move on, I just want to call to action. If you're watching this now, or if you're watching it later, please hit subscribe or follow or whatever. It's free. This podcast will always be free, unless we do a Patreon and have non-free episodes. But the main show will always be free. Please give us a follow. It helps us out greatly. And it's at no fee to you. So I mean, what's there to lose? You get to hang out with us for a few hours every week, and then you see me post incessantly about it on social media all week. And also, I'd like to give a shout out to White Bat Audio, who provides that music that you heard in the opening, as well as I believe the theme for this month's intro video is White Bat. Steve, can you concur?
It is.
And he doesn't know we use his music, but I want to shout him out.
Maybe one day he will.
He provides DMCA free music for people that are doing podcasts, which is super helpful. And the music's good. That music we heard in the beginning, that was just like cool, like new retro wave. It's the perfect backdrop for that sort of thing.
For the
so
nostalgic.
thank you. Yeah. Yes. All right. So it's time for our brief history.
A brief history.
Now you see, around here it is a time-honored tradition to give our guests the first opportunity to give their brief history. Basically, what that means, since you're kind of new here, you basically just tell us about your history with the film, like the first time you saw it.
Okay.
And, just tell us about your relationship to the film.
I love this movie. I saw it, if not in the theater, I saw it very shortly after it came out. I was trying to figure it out and I can't remember which it was, whether I did see it in the theater, probably because I think I went and watched everything in the theater back then. Anyway, beside the point, it's fantastic. But I have to say that since, I have really gone deep on the Star Trek fandom over the last few years, I'm in there, and the deeper I get into Star Trek, the better this movie gets. And I mean, I've always been a Star Trek fan. I've always, understood the connection, but just the fandom, this isn't just a love letter to Star Trek. This is a love letter to the fandom.
Keep saying it, because the angrier Steve gets, the happier
I'm
I
not
get.
gonna get angry.
Got it.
I never get angry.
All right. Thank you. Steve, what's your brief history with the old Galaxy Quest film?
So this movie came out when I was a little baby boy. But I have this uncle who he was a very kind of busy guy, so we didn't get to see him very often outside of major holidays like Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. So every once in a while he would just randomly show up at my school. The announcements would come over and be like, can you send Steven to the office, please? And I'd be like, what the fuck's going on? And it would freak me out every time. I'd get in there, my sister would be in there, and he would just take us out of school and take us to do something. It would happen once in a while randomly. And this was one of those occasions. He took us out of school and we went to go see Galaxy Quest at Square One in Mississauga. And it was the first time I had been to that theater as well. Up until that point, most of my theater experiences were a shitty movie theater in a mall basement, just because those were the ones that were close to my house at the time. So this was a fancy movie theater. And I didn't even know what we were going to go see. I guess he just was like, this looks like something they'll like. This looks like something I'll like. And it turns out he was absolutely correct, because we were all cackling with laughter the entire time. I wasn't huge into Star Trek at this point in my life, but I didn't dislike it, and I did watch it quite often. So I understood what was going on. But this kind of gave me more respect for Star Trek, and it had me enjoying Star Trek a little bit more than particularly the classic Kirk Spock Enterprise, which I always kind of found a little bit dry when I was a kid. I was more into TNG, but yeah, my first experience with this was a magical free day off school to a sick theater that I'd never been to before.
That's awesome.
And it was very good.
Nice. Yeah. For me, it's I thought I had seen this movie. I thought that I knew this movie, but I really just knew like the plot, like the fact that they were, actors who get taken to do this adventure. But I rewatched it yesterday, and I believe that I must have seen it when I was like in 1999 or 2000, and just don't really remember it because I was watching it like I was watching it for the first time. And yeah, like I feel like a lot of people would kind of kill to get that experience back because I know how important it is. Because I'm not a Star Trek person. I'm more of like a Japanese RPG person.
Nice.
Like I'm like into that sort of stuff. That's where I spent a lot of my time growing up, like Japanese video games and that. So I don't have that connection. My wife is a Trekkie, right? So we've made a deal that I'm slowly making my way through TNG, and she's playing Final Fantasy VII, the original.
Awesome. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we sort of have that deal going on right now. It's been going on for a minute. It kind of have ebbs and flows, right? But I have watched over the years a bunch of Star Trek. But my point is that when this movie came out, I wasn't like, gotta see it, where you guys were probably like, that's right in my wheelhouse. But watching it today through the lens of being an adult and understanding all the references and really like getting it and being dialed in, I really had a great time with it. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic film. I usually write like a small review at the end, like a final thought. We're gonna have a final thoughts like section at the very end, but I didn't, because I want to talk about it and sort of construct it as we talk.
Nice.
Because I want to know, when we deep dive on the different elements of the movie, I'm excited to sort of think through it a little bit more. And this film and Mystery Men, which we did a couple weeks ago, I feel like are very like, you should do a double feature of those two movies almost, because they're very like similar in a lot of ways, like humor wise, and like a ragtag group of like underdogs.
They even have the same joke in there. The like, okay, I'm gonna go Karee, Karoo, and then this one he's like, I'll do this with my hands and go, so I'm like, oh, same joke. Good.
So yeah, that's fantastic. This is gonna be fun. With that, we've done our brief history, so let's do a little bit of director talk.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of
Sound, speed, action!
All right, so this is sort of where I let Steve take the reins.
You never do research, right? Got it.
I do the research while you start talking.
You watch the movie. Yeah,
I
you
watch
pull up
the
your
movie.
Wikipedia page right now.
Yeah.
The director is known for not a lot. I mean, he's known for very specific things. I think he's got a lot of things that I like in his filmography. His name is Dean Parisot, I believe is how you say it. I'm not sure if that's correct. Parisot. But he's done a lot of TV. But
okay.
And a lot of good TV too. Like it's not like he's like, I had my brief stint on television when I was in director jail. It's like, no, he was directing the shit out of TV for years and years and years. Like if you look at his filmography of television, it's just like all the best shows of the early to mid to late 2000s. Not late 2000s, but 2010s. Some, like I really liked Santa Clarita Diet. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. Drew Barrymore is essentially a zombie. Dirk Gently, which is also really good.
Dirk Gently was fantastic.
Weird. Justified, The Good Wife, Modern Family. Yeah, Monk. Like Monk. I wasn't really a huge fan of Monk either, but some people love it. But he also made, he did the late 90s Tick television show, which I was a big fan of.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, Fun with Dick and Jane. I don't know if you guys like
Yep.
Harry, but
Yep, that's a
remember
good
that one? I don't really remember that one. I didn't watch it that many times. But the most recent thing that he did that I think a lot of people saw and liked was the new Bill and Ted movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
which was fun, and it does have
Yeah.
kind of a weirdly similar vibe to Galaxy Quest. But if you even just going through his filmography, everything does have sort of a similar tone in terms of the sensibilities of character growth and the way characters interact with each other. He's got an eye for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like also Red 2 is a kind of a ragtag group. The Red movies are like the old people actors get together and do actions. They do action. It's got the
I don't know if I've seen Red 2, that's why I didn't bring it up.
it's got the lady from Weeds in it, I believe, and I think John.
Oh yeah,
Malkovich.
Weed Lady.
You know,
I've seen Red 1.
Do our research here.
But yeah, I think he's had a long and pretty painted career in terms of like, and like a good range of stuff. You know, like they all have very clear identities from one another, which is cool. It's always good when you have somebody who's not quite an auteur but is able to put their stamp of approval on something and their signatures in the corner. I'm going to use so many painting analogies this entire episode because you're a painter.
I love it.
Yeah. But other than that, I don't have a huge amount to talk to in terms of the director because I'm not that familiar with his work.
We can talk a little bit too about the people that wrote this movie. I noticed here it's David Howard and Robert Gordon. David Howard seems to just be like a Star Trek expert.
Oh, really?
He has this and a movie called Trek the Movie, which I believe is not a Star Trek at all. Nope, not at all. It's a young Mormon teenager named Tom and his friends on their handcart journey.
Oh, there you go.
Along the way they look like they're like, oh my god.
Also, the majority of this, the majority of Galaxy Quest was written by a different person and was then purchased. And
there's Robert Gordon, the other writer, though. He wrote Men in Black 2. He wrote Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow, Addicted to Love, and Wonder Park.
I'm talking before it even got into the hands.
Well, before even that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these guys shined it up, but it was already,
a spit shine. But
it
was originally called Captain Starshine. And that's when David Howard was involved. But I mean, this does also kind of feel like a handhold to the Men in Black movies too. You know, there's that late 90s kind of like, there's certain moments, you know, when the guy like gets shot out the airlock and then maybe like 10 minutes later he like splatters on the screen of the ship. That felt very Men in Black to me in terms of like
like the weird gross out moments in this feel very Men in Black. And I guess Steve, you during this segment you'd want to mention that this movie was originally slated to be rated R, and there are moments in this movie where you can definitely see that.
Well, it started. They weren't really aiming for a particular audience, and then even when they did kind of get down to filming, they're like, okay, we'll do PG-13, and so they filmed it to be PG-13, which is why there's a very glaringly obvious moment where Sigourney Weaver fuck, and it's just like,
I caught that.
Shucks or whatever.
Yeah.
She refused to reshoot that because she disagreed with the change. She's like, no, I wouldn't say screw that. I would say fuck that. That's what I would say. That's what anyone would say in the situation.
Yeah.
If you're only allowed to have one fuck, then it's going to be that moment. They've chose it well, but I think Stuart Little or something was coming out the same weekend, so they're like, we need to change this to a PG because we're not going to be able to compete with Stuart Little on the same weekend, so we'd have to switch it. And Sigourney Weaver was like, I'm not reshooting that scene. And also, I'm going to go in and do the dub because it's in my contract that I have to, but I'm going to make it so awkward that you're never going to be able to lip sync it properly. So it's so obvious that she's saying something completely different. Sorry, there's an ambulance going by.
This is the ambulance segment of the show.
But yeah, it wasn't. I think with their first pass, like they wanted to give it an R, and they like took it down to PG-13. They got it all tightened up and ready to go, and then Stuart Little was announced, and they're like, "Oh, we have to make it a PG." But I'm even kind of still shocked that this is PG. Like there are moments that are not PG in this. Like when those little rascals eat their limping friend and they all have like butt cracks and stuff. I'm like, this feels, like, how'd they get away with PG? Just let Sigourney drop the F-bomb. They did it in Big. Who cares?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did a lot of other stuff in Big too. It was not PG.
Weird stuff. Yeah.
You mean the Tom Hanks movie? Yeah, that movie has like a weird, like, we don't have to get into it, but it's not PG.
Say. We were all making very careful decisions with our words, and I was wondering if we were just going to trample all over that.
No, I'm not going to get canceled this week.
Okay, that's your goal.
That's fair.
No, no.
Well,
I like to just
fact?
I just like to say things that people listen to and hear and make decisions about. But yeah, this movie made $90 million at the box office. It was a modest box office success.
I don't know if to warrant them making a sequel, but I don't think that they wanted to make a sequel because it's
kind of a self-contained story.
It is, and also a lot of the joy of this movie is that beginning third to half where they're reawakening as these dead actors into people that have purpose and exploring the ship and getting to know them through them having to do the actions of the show. We haven't even seen the show, but we're getting to see what they did on the show through this. All of that is like very fun. And I'm not sure if the movie would work as well if they didn't have any of that, if they were just getting jumped into a movie that they already know what they're doing. What would it be really, Who knows?
Yeah.
Handcart journey sound like a euphemism for hand job.
Thanks, World Mind.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Each and every week on the Hold Up podcast.
Nice.
Here on the United Federation of Podcasts. Thanks for that. The movie only cost $45 million to make, which is crazy considering the set pieces. The CGI isn't awful. It's used pretty sparsely, but that rock monster is looks pretty good. It looks like a PlayStation 2 game, but for the time,
I feel like you're misremembering what PlayStation 2 graphics look like.
It could be PlayStation 3 graphics.
3 is a little more, it's a little more forgiving.
Yeah,
it really holds up. Like,
it doesn't look bad.
I mean, it's not Jurassic Park, but it's it's actually, I wasn't looking at it and going,
yeah, that's not real. It's
of
course it's not real. It's a giant rock monster.
Yeah. What is it? Starship Troopers 2 or 3, where the bugs are look like cutouts.
We did Starship Troopers 1 did it well, and then the rest of the movie was well, let's try and do what the first one did with none of the budget.
We covered that movie a couple months ago, and we had a really good time with it. And I didn't. That movie I had seen a bunch, but I've never seen the sequels, and I don't want to tarnish the reputation of the first one, because I hear they just get progressively worse.
Yeah,
I don't know if you allow that to happen, then that's on you. I've seen the first one a million times. It's one of my favorite movies, and I've also seen all the sequels, and it hasn't tarnished anything. All it's done is really make me appreciate how much I love the first one.
That's fair.
You just have to not really be concerned about the ones that came after.
I was gonna say though, this movie also kind of fits into that realm as well. This movie and that movie have similar vibes. That movie is a little bit more serious, tonally, but this one, that planet they go to where they have to pick up the sphere, it's that felt like the planet the first time that they go.
I believe that they were both filmed in Glen Canyon, Utah. So
probably
it is the same.
Actually, that makes sense. Yeah,
planet Earth.
Klendathu.
There were talks about a sequel to this. But I think when Alan Rickman passed away, it kind of just killed the whole idea. It's we can't do the movie without Alan Rickman. He's such a huge part of this movie. Doing it
20 years later, kind of a sequel, would they do something where they?
It would be like a Lego sequel, or it would be the show is finally being canceled again after a decade of success or something, and then they're we're finally leaving the show behind, and then those guys show up again we need your help again. Oh god.
But after there's like a bunch of like spin-off shows like Galaxy Quest, Voyager,
Right.
Right,
Forager.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be bad if they had another crew. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It would be hard to do because the whole concept for this movie is what is the strength of the movie, right? So to have that not be there, the premise already resolved, it makes it does feel kind of cash grabby, and you would then be relying on a new premise, which just makes it a space movie at that point.
Totally.
You're not having the charm.
Also, Tim Allen is like hard
problematic.
right-wing weirdo now.
Well, just do what they're doing in
Yeah.
Beetlejuice 2 and have him at their funeral at the beginning.
Right.
Dead.
Yeah.
Johnny Weaver is the main character now.
Yeah.
She rules.
One other fun fact about the making of this movie is that the writer and director named the villain after a film critic. His name was James Sarek. And he thought it was gonna be like "fuck you, man," but then James Sarek saw this and he's like, "Listen, man, what do you expect my feelings to be hurt? I'm just happy you spelled my name right." That's good. And he's like, "Also, I like the movie. It was a good movie." So, also Harold Ramis was supposed to direct this, but he wanted Alec Baldwin to be the main character, and they were like, "No, Tim Allen." He just didn't like the direction that they were forcing him to go in. He also refused to cast Sigourney Weaver, which I found weird because they're friends. But he was like, "No, I don't want anybody who's ever been in science fiction to be in this movie because it'll like ruin the immersion."
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I think he was approaching it from a bad angle. And he said he didn't like the movie, which I'm like, was Harold Ramis a secret dick or just like a weird, like petty guy? Like, I don't know. Who knows? Because this movie rules.
I want to know how he feels about being in that Ghostbusters Afterlife as a CGI ghost. I feel like he wouldn't. Did he sign off on that before he passed away? Because
no, but his family did.
Yeah, so he probably would have been like, "Do not do that, please."
I think there's probably going to be actors that are like in their will, they're going to have some sort of contract set up being like, no one can ever use me after I'm dead. Because my weird, greedy great-great-grandchildren will put me in a fucking Pepsi commercial in 2050 or whatever.
Oh my God.
Bill Murray barely wants to play Peter Venkman while he's alive. He definitely does not want to play him posthumously.
Oh my God.
Cool. Well, we can talk about the movie now for real. If you want to go into the body of the episode.
Okay.
Everybody back up, because here comes the body of the episode.
This is, of course, the body of the episode, or the podcast of it all, where we basically run through the movie. We talk about the movie. If you cut off the beginning and end where we do our silly little games and segments, this is the part you came to see. Thank you for listening to us rant about the director and the people that played the little game this week. But this is, of course, the body of the episode where we're talking about Galaxy Quest. I'm going to sort of run down the plot points. I have them written here next to me, but talk at will. Honestly, we just talk it out. The first thing I have written down is opens with the show. Tim Allen's hair, LOL. It's the 80s, and never give up, never surrender. Also, I was on a Survivor podcast last night for the.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they've been calling on me to do that. It's also here on the United Federation of Podcasts.
Fantastic.
Super Mater Brothers. But we got into this movie a little bit after, and something I didn't notice was Tony Shalhoub's was cast as his character is cast as an Asian person. So when they show him in the 80s, I was like, why is his face painted all weird? But when you're watching the rest of the movie, every time he's like talking, he smiles and like squints. And that was sort of like a weird revelation that I had, that they were making a statement about, people of other races playing other races.
His character was meant to be based on David Carradine.
Yeah.
He was famously a white man who was cast as an Asian man all the time throughout his career. And and so he's basically like he leaned into it. His character in the show is like, this is not even my real name. Like later when they're trying to convince him of who he is, because he changed his last name to Juan,
Yeah.
so that people would think that he was Asian, which is objectively very funny.
It is.
Like, a very funny take. But yeah, his character is also supposed to be like on hard drugs the entire time, or at least that's the way he was written initially, and they had to pull back on it
And just kind of made him like an idiot.
Him as a character, like the actor is like Tony Shalhoub was like, I'm gonna make it so that he's always nibbling on something, so he's always got the munchies or whatever. So he's like eating the the cheese stick in the ship. When they're on that planet, there's a point they don't focus on it at all. But he's carrying around with him a big paper bag, and at one point he's got it in his mouth, and it's just like greasy in the bottom. You're like, that's just full of snacks. Like
I noticed that. I was like, where did he get fast food from?
That's amazing.
He just raided the cafeteria.
Well, and he was at the vending machine when they got transported, right?
It was like some ancient vending machine for soups and stuff.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any change?
Also, that's a good point too, because they all have horrible crises when they go through the teleporter thing, and he just is like, that was fine, man.
Yeah.
Ew.
Hell of a thing. Yeah.
Hell of a thing.
Wild.
Yeah, so the movie starts at a convention.
I always like when a movie starts in 4x3 and then stretches out. There's just something fun about it, and like magical, I guess. I remember being in the theater as a kid and seeing that and being like, cool. I like this. And this isn't the only movie they do it in. They've done it before, they did it after, but it's just something that I always appreciate, because we don't have to do that. It's for us. It's
movie magic.
Yeah, it starts as like a TV shaped screen and stretches into full cinema scope, and we get a little brief view of what people's perception of cons were in the late 90s, which was everybody is unfortunate looking and sweaty and overweight or really weird looking, and like those are the only people that go to conventions, guys.
Now, I don't think I've ever really been to a convention. Jenny, I know that you do HalCon.
Oh my god.
Year,
yeah.
And I'm sure you've been to other conventions as well. Is it still like the way that the movies portray it?
I mean, it's funny. I went to STLV last year, and that's like the biggest Star Trek convention like in North America, like specifically just Star Trek. And I mean, the only thing honestly that didn't ring true to me, and I understand why it's there, but the two guys who come, the two kids who come into the bathroom and like, oh, idiots, that's the only thing that doesn't ring true to me, because those people aren't there.
Yeah, I was like, why are they guys there?
yeah, like they don't spend money to go there, you know? Like everyone at these conventions, like the thing that I love the most about conventions is that everyone who's there is so psyched to be there, and they're also so psyched about what you're excited about, even though they don't know what it is. Like, this is your favorite character, this is my favorite character, this is, I'm dressed up as this anime that nobody else knows, but I'm so stoked about it. Like, it's just, oh god, conventions are like the most amazing places. So yeah, like it's an exaggeration, obviously, but it's almost like bang on.
It's like a cartoonish representation. Because I've been to 1 million conventions.
Yeah.
So I've worked at them. I've gone to them for fun. I've had a couple here and there. And I mean, there's definitely weirdos, but not every single person is a weirdo.
Yes.
That's the issue that I have with it. It's like, it was a punchline, but that's kind of one thing that is really nice about this movie is they're not treating it like a punchline. And the only thing that's unfortunate is those two people that come into the bathroom who they're supposed to be the ones that are making fun. But like, even in the context of the movie, they seem like the most insufferable piece of shit people that you've ever heard speak.
Totally.
To the point that like, I think the movie was even like, let's not show them. Let's just show their voices, because those actors will be panned forever and all time. They'll be typecast as assholes forever.
Yeah.
And really, they were there just so Tim Allen would like take a look at his life and then have a crisis of faith and overdrink and then the aliens would come and you would think that they're just more of these nerds.
Yeah.
It gets the ball rolling for the movie, really.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
my initial thought, I don't remember that. Just a little extension of my brief history. I think this movie was just on TV a lot. So
Yeah, it was for a while.
I think that's why I thought that I knew this movie well, because I just saw bits and pieces over the years. But there's so much more nuance to it when you watch it as like one complete thing, much like lots of films are. You don't get the whole
You're
picture.
telling me
unless
that
you
you'll get a
actually
better
watch
experience
it.
if you watch the whole movie and not just bits and pieces of it? Holy
Yeah.
I never would've
Holy
thunk
shit!
it.
What a concept. But I don't remember this moment, and I all I could think was like, why would you? Conventions are expensive, man.
Yeah, these guys spent $120 to just like make fun of people.
Oh, at least, yeah.
They suck. It's all a bunch of nerd garbage.
Yeah. You know, and I actually appreciate the fact that we only see Tim Allen like being affected by it.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, you know, the three guys on either side of them, like we didn't have to watch them like be crushed.
When we first pan in and it's kind of tracking Tim Allen and he goes into the stall, it shows like, you know, a bunch of people that look like the equivalent of Klingons dressed up in their costumes.
Yeah.
And then two other people, but like the Klingons are like, oh, that's funny. But then the other two people look like they're just dressed normally. But one of them is standing in front of the stall with his arms just next to him. Like he's not holding anything. His arms are just straight at his sides. I'm like, is this guy
just in the way?
He's just going free ball.
So
He
yeah,
quit.
I noticed that those were definitely supposed to be like Klingons, right?
Mhm.
But they couldn't show the front of them, or else.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that wasn't the weirdest thing. The guy,
The
who's
one
not,
guy?
who's not directing his piece. That's the weird thing.
He's just very confident.
Yeah.
That's great. We're also introduced to Sam Rockwell, who, you know, low key is my favorite character in this movie.
Mhm.
He's also
Low-key
one of
my favorite actors on Earth. So yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
and I think that he was given a role that he could have phoned in, but he doubled down and being a good actor about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there's
Yep.
some scenes where he's like sweaty and freaking out, and I was like, you didn't have to put that much into this, man.
I don't think that he would have phoned it in at this point in his career. It's very,
That's-
very
yeah, that's
early
a
in his
good
career.
Yeah.
Also, he almost didn't take this role because he thought that it would be detrimental to his career because he really wanted to do drama and serious roles. And he was also intimidated by the A-list status of everybody else in the movie. And he's like, I'm going to be overshadowed. I'm just going to be playing this like goofy character. It's going to pigeonhole me in the future. And I think after speaking to a few of his friends, one of which I don't want to name because he's a big name, but he's also canceled as fuck. And I'm like, it makes me sad that they were friends.
Oh no.
But he was talked into doing it by this person. And he also was given the advice like, listen, man, so many people started in comedy. You're not going to be pigeonholed. You've got the talent. And this movie, I think, is one of the reasons that he has gotten other roles that are not necessarily similar, but have a similar energy. Like if you look at Hitchhiker's Guide, another movie we did on the podcast at one point, the energy of the president of the galaxy is very similar to Guy.
Yeah, Bibblebrox. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's even got the weird, like, he's wearing too much jewelry in this.
Well, it's like he's a guy who's like he's been acting since the 80s and he's been like coasting with this the convention circuits for all that
Yeah.
time. You know, he's still living as crewman number 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
And
the
conventions. Yeah.
And those people exist. Like there's a couple of Trek actors who were background all the way through TNG who are like at all the conventions now and in the Facebook groups and they're so engaged and like it's lovely, but it's also just like, wow, it's really interesting to watch. Like it's really, and then to see him doing that like that was just, yeah.
I would absolutely love that if my career was just like, yeah, you just go to conventions forever and just have to call people up on stage and maybe do a little bit of panel work just because you were on a TV show for, 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
20 years ago. That'd be great. Yeah. If it pays the bills and puts food on the table, why the frick?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. As somebody who's a massive fan of professional wrestling, a lot of wrestlers sort of live off that.
Yeah.
Years are over. It's a little bit more sad, I would say, because a lot of wrestlers are broken down and they have to do that to
totally
meet. But it is similar. Like when you go to a wrestling convention or go to like a a signing. It's a bunch of like jobbers. A jobber is basically a person who just makes stars look better, enhancement talent.
Yeah.
And that's what background actors are a lot of the time, right? They're just
Totally.
kind of there as a set piece, or as like, the red shirts in Star Trek. I know about that phenomenon.
Yeah.
They would be like the guest star of the week, and then they get killed off. So yeah, I don't know what it was about. I think Sam Rockwell is a great actor, but I think I glommed onto this character because it's such an interesting thing to have. I thought he was going to die. Like, that's another reason why I was like, I haven't seen this movie clearly, because he's going to have a hilarious death, or he's going to die like in a way that is hilariously unrelated to them being in space.
Right.
He's going to stub his toe and fall, fall on his neck or something.
I think that the fact that he's constantly fearing death if he died would be antithetical to the joke. I think like it wouldn't work comedically. It would be actually sad. You'd be like, oh no,
yes,
die. Yeah,
that's true.
And then also we wouldn't get the most amazing physical performance of all time at the end of the movie when he looks into the camera and like winks and smiles and like has his uniform not done away with his crazy hair. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, so the cast is older now. I wrote Tony Shalhoub is an idiot, but this is before I watch his progression and realize that he and the light that you shone on it, where it's like he's just partied his whole career and he's just the party guy of the group, but he's very mellow about it. So it seems like he's just kind of like the airhead of the bunch.
I don't think he's supposed to be like partying. I think he's just supposed to be like constantly smoking a little bit of weed. Yeah,
consistently. Yeah.
Constantly high.
Whenever he's off screen, he's just on a vape or whatever.
I'd forgotten that, like when they're first on the ship, the ship's trashed, and then he calls up from engineering. Like, I had forgotten how it like ridiculously funny that bit, and he's because he's just like, hey guys, yeah, the engine's
everyone
broken.
else is like, ah!
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I had forgotten until that point how good he is in this movie. Like, it's just
there's
amazing.
There's a lot of like really small moments like that you probably realize on multiple viewings. And we'll get into it when we get to it, like later when the aliens are introduced, but all of those background aliens are like C-list actors from the era, and it's so funny to like be able to point out.
It doesn't count as C-list actor if they're at that point just a background extra. They're
F-list actors.
They're just
I wanted to be nice about it. Yeah. Okay. So realistically, Sam Rockwell was like a B actor at the time, kind of cutting his teeth, and Squeak from Basketball, who's in the movie for 8 seconds, was only in Basketball at that time.
Amazing.
Well, I think that he's primarily a writer, isn't he?
Yeah, he was like the third.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he was just like probably doing like rewrites on small scenes, and they're just like, you want to be an alien in the background of the scene? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. No, my name's not Squeak. I swear, if you guys rip on me 14 more times, I'm out of here. Sorry. Just once I get going.
Tim Allen keeps calling him a bitch, and he's like, call me that. But yeah, I mean, like Rainn Wilson was supposed to have a bigger role in the movie, but he was shooting a pilot at the same time, so he had to like go back and forth between New York and LA. So a bunch of his stuff was cut, and that's just how it works, right? Like he got the role as I can't remember the name of the character. He's in it so little, but he's just there. Doesn't really have a lot of lines. But it's not.
What was he in? At that, did the pilot become anything?
It was his first movie that he'd ever made.
Okay, because the first thing that really had him pop off was Dead, not Dead Like Me, 6 Feet Under. He was on that.
Oh, okay.
And then The Office right after that.
The TV show was it was a pilot for a TV show that I don't think it got picked up, or it was canceled very short after. It was called The Expendables, I think. I don't know what the concept was. And I looked into it. I saw 30 seconds of like the opening, and I was like, he's like in a tube of light with another guy, and they're both naked. Like, I guess it was a comedy, and then I just closed it. Like, I don't care. I don't need to learn about this. But you know, like again, you can't say like he was a C-list actor at the time. It's like no, he just wasn't an actor yet.
He just wasn't.
Yeah.
He has no credits to his name, which is the case with so many of the aliens in this movie. But the main alien, who's the actor's name is always something that escapes my mind.
Enrico Colantoni. Interesting thing about him is he popped up recently on the show The Trades. The Trades is the show with Rob Wells of the Trailer Park Boys on Crave.
Okay.
And it's basically about, I think it's filmed in like Cole Harbor or something. It's basically they work at an oil refinery, and I thought it was going to be bad CanCon, like try to capture what the Trailer Park Boys had, but it's actually kind of like a sweet little 8-episode sitcom thing.
Oh, right on.
About smoking weed. There's like a raccoon character that's pretty funny. I don't know. I expected to hate it, and I ended up being excited for the next episode every week. And Rob
That's
Wells,
awesome.
It's nice to see Rob Wells not just playing Ricky. Yeah, so it was cool. But he's on it as this like jaded, disgruntled like parts guy. He like gives the parts out to, like, the new welders basically.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And he was also on Just Shoot Me. He's been around. He's been in the biz.
Yeah, an actor that's been around since the 90s. He also, using a voice warm-up technique that he learned in film school and drama school, created the voice of the main alien, which then was disseminated through all of because the director and the writers loved it so much, they're like, nope, this is how all the aliens have to act. And he's like, okay. So he became like an acting coach for the entire army of people.
That's
like,
amazing.
Yeah. Like I go,
does this make sense to you guys? It sounds like he's like talking backwards almost. Like not that the words are backwards, but the way it's like speaking English in a reverse intonation.
Not even like reversed so much as it is like you're speaking the way you would speak the end of the sentence at the beginning of the sentence.
Yeah.
Like in that sense, like you're sort of like shuffling around how you should say each part of a sentence, which is pretty funny. And then the way they move is very funny because
oh my god,
I guess like a calamari monster slapped inside of a human skin, so they're just
and they're like trying to walk like people, but they're walking like they're swinging their right arm when they step forward with their right leg. It's like
it kind of reminds me. Have you guys seen the TikTok of this like challenge where you try to run, but with your arm and your leg on the same side at the same time instead of like swinging opposites? And it's like impossible. You look insane. That's what them walking kind of looked like. Like they were doing some sort of small robot. Like
it was inspired by like marionette puppets, like where you're lifting one in the arm at the same time. So it's just like a lot of weird stuff went into it for something that really didn't need to be there. But it's like, we have to make it wacky, and succeeded. Like, it's so good.
Yeah. And they're like, because they're so weird, but they're also they're so like endearing, and
they're so like sweet and nice. They don't understand what lies are. There's like no concept of them trying to mislead you in any way.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be lying, would you?
Yeah,
like no, of course not.
It's awesome. There's a group of cosplayers who go to the Star Trek convention in Vegas every year as Thermians. And they're in character the whole weekend, and it's incredible. Like it's actually just straight up like I ran into them in the casino, and they were just like
it would be annoying because like so many people would probably come up to you and be like, "We need your help." Like, oh god, okay, yeah, man.
They love it.
What if they're also in character?
In peace over here.
They're doing it. They're literally doing it.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what you go like, all right, dressed up. You want people to come up to you, right? And I remember go ahead, Jason.
I was just gonna say a 60-year-old like lounge lizard, like gambler reacts to that. They've been there pulling the slot machine all day on vacation from Florida or whatever. They're just seeing this convention nonsense happen.
Oh yeah.
Steve, what are you gonna say?
I was going to say I was at Comic-Con in Toronto, or it might have been it was at Fan Expo in Toronto, and I was working a booth, and someone came up And she was just there, and I was talking to her, and it took me a minute. And I was like, I know who she's dressed as, but I can't quite put my finger on it. And it finally clicked. And I was, Jason, you'll know who this is. And I was like, are you the final Pam? And she was like, and I was like, you are the final Pam. And it was like this really obscure costume that I know.
It's a like McElroy Brothers reference. To
Amazing.
Monster Factory videos they used to make. That
I could tell
that's
by her
such a
reaction.
crazy.
I could tell by her reaction that not a lot of people had been.
Oh yeah.
Like, I know who you are. And this was still pretty close to when that like had just come out. So even Monster Factory wasn't as large as it was. It was good, but those are the kind of
8 years ago now.
It's a long time. Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, the other good thing about the Thurians is that they don't seem out of place in this convention because everybody's dressed as a space alien or in a weird uniform, and is socially awkward. So it's like even just his interactions with the regular fans are kind of it's like an out of breath teenager who's struggling to formulate his thoughts to explain something, even though he's being very articulate with what he's saying. He's like so nervous. Like you can tell. And Justin Long plays nervous very well.
Yeah, the other aliens that are in a lot of it are Missy Pyle, who's from a lot of stuff. Also, she's a character actor from a lot of stuff. I believe Zoolander is probably one of the ones that people know her from the most. She was the what's her face in Zoolander, right? Or is that somebody even different? Am I even just wrong about that?
Who in Zoolander?
The character that's like, I'm just looking at her. She's got like 1 million acting credits.
Tell me who in Zoolander you think she is. I need to know.
The person, like the woman who's with Will Ferrell.
No, that's Mila Jovovich.
Oh yeah,
it's Mila Jovovich. Right. What do I know Missy Pyle from? She's just in everything.
She's in this. Yeah, she's in stuff. But she's a character actor, so she's a chameleon a lot of the time, where they put dye her hair or put her in a wig or put a mole on her face, and she kind of transforms into the role. But you know her when you see her.
Why did I think that she was in Zoolander? Maybe it's because I'm stupid.
Maybe it's because she's wearing the same wig in this movie as Mila Jovovich is wearing in that movie.
That's true. That's true. She could play Mila Jovovich in a biopic, probably. Right, and the other guy, what's his name? Jed Reese. He's a character actor from a bunch of stuff too. I like him in this because he has the goofiest look on his face like the whole time.
Well, that's another thing about them in general, is that no matter what emotion they're feeling, they're constantly smiling. Like they're trying to smile. It's like they've programmed the skin to always have a pleasant appearance.
Yeah.
And then even when they're like watching their commander being tortured on TV and they're all like, and then he like turns around and his eyes are so sad, but he still has like this smile on his face. And you're like, oh, and even when he's being tortured at the end, he's like, still smiling, even when he's in pain. I'm like, okay, so maybe this guy deserves an Oscar for this performance.
Like, it's incredible. Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that they're all able to kind of do that, because it is a hard emotion to convey, like sadness of the eyes with the goofiest smile.
Yeah, like have you ever actually tried to do that? Like sad eyes.
I can't.
Like it's really difficult, right?
I can't do it.
You end up looking like Tony Shalhoub.
Yeah.
So,
and just one other movie. Did you guys ever see Men with Brooms?
Oh God, yeah.
With Leslie Nielsen. Jed Reese is from that movie, probably most notably. He's been in like a lot of TV now, but I remember when that movie came out. After that, I was like, oh, it's that guy from Men with Brooms, and that movie's great. It had Leslie Nielsen as like this old like mushrooms addict, like mushroom head, and he like grew mushrooms in like the basement of this like house. And that's what I remember. It was one of his final movies before he passed away. And it was basically a curling movie. So us Canadians enjoyed that.
I've never seen it.
It would be a movie for this show.
My friend Conrad's stepdad was in it. I knew that much, because every time I went over, his stepdad would fucking tell us about it. And I was like,
Cool, you're in a weird Canadian indie comedy. Congratulations.
Amazing.
Brooms? No, I was in it. Well, I haven't seen you in it because I haven't seen it. Sorry. Leslie Nielsen's in it. Cool.
Cool.
That's
Leslie
great.
Nielsen rules.
Yeah.
Remember
when he pees at his finger in Scary Movie 3?
I had a question about this era of conventions. Was the term cosplay invented at this point, or does that come much later?
I don't think so.
I don't have an answer for that either.
I
assume not, because it's been like dressing up at a convention has been around since like,
the 60s.
Yeah.
So and cosplay as a concept,
Yeah.
not new, but like the name cosplay,
Yeah.
wasn't really until it became almost like a lifestyle, you know, like like my whole job is cosplaying, and I go from convention to convention and I make costumes, and that's my job. Like I think that's where the term came, but I don't know. Something we'd have to look up, Jason.
Well, I wanted to ask you guys that as a question because this is a discussion. So
yeah,
this is the movie discussion review roundtable reaction.
Yeah, I feel like once it became more, like more sort of universally accepted as not a weird thing, you know, that it was.
It's when furries were invented, the cosplayers had to differentiate themselves.
Yes.
They're like, no, we need our own term.
We're not furries.
Yeah.
It was also just in my notes, and I just say what my notes say from 24 hours ago, you know? So
yeah. Absolutely.
Some stuff's going to sneak through. Jason Nesmith hears people talking shit. We kind of talked about that. Oh, they say the R word. I noticed that I didn't care for it. I was like, wow, we've been on this string of movies from around this era where there have been no words of the era, I'll say.
Right.
Which has been refreshing. So to hear them say that was just like, it hurt.
Yeah.
Those are the pleas coming for you, Jason.
Damn it, I managed to get canceled anyway.
You can get canceled for just saying R word now.
It's it is funny. I mean, it's actually, you know, because often, you know, you look around and you're like, have we actually come that far? I don't know. Yes. But yeah, when that sort of thing happens and you're like, like we're like, okay, yes.
The saving grace in that situation is that it's coming from two despicable asshole characters that no matter what they said, it was going to be offensive, and everything that they say is offensive. But yes, it's a bad word. That was kind of 99, so it was in the vernacular.
Definitely,
it still is in some circles. I still hear people sometimes. I'm like, nope.
Yeah,
nope.
You kind of cut out there for a second, Steve. What I heard is that you still use it. Just kidding.
Someone that I know used it today, and I was like, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's always hard when somebody between the ages of 35 and 45 says it, and
I think that they're younger.
Maybe you call them out.
I don't know how old they are.
Maybe you call them out on it, and they're like, "That's from my era. I'm allowed to say it."
Okay.
Like, okay.
I grew up in the 80s. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, people were saying a lot other things in the 80s too that you don't say anymore. I bet.
Yeah. There's a lot of words you can't say, and the world's better for it. But this combined with the nerds coming back, so the nerds accost him at his table to be like, "Did the flux capacitor, if it's in the flux zone, can flux it up, buddy boy?" Anyway,
it's the Omega 13 drive, you sick fuck.
I'm a sick freak 20 days a week. But Jason Nesmith freaks out at this. This is when he just like can't take it. He drinks an entire bottle of whiskey while watching old episodes of Galaxy Quest.
Skipped over it a little bit. I did want to talk about it a little bit because I think it's good character building. But, it's right at the beginning when Sam Rockwell is addressing the crowd. He briefly speaks about the episode they just watched, but then he starts to talk about the crew, and he refers to them as the crew constantly, but then it's like cutting back between him and them. So they're all their own individual versions of a crisis until Tim Allen shows up, who is nonchalant. He's a jerk, and it's cutting back and forth between him being like, not only were they a crew, but they were best friends. And it's cutting back to them.
Yeah.
You fucking asshole. And it's just kind of showing what this type of relationship and like having a hierarchy within it can like the kind of strain that it can put on people.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, this isn't just true for actors or like the crew of a ship. It's like true in all senses, right? A team is meant to be a team, and anytime there's somebody that's able to elevate themselves so high, and then, you know, you get to the point where it's showing them in their individual apartments, and it's so different, right? Like he lives in the hills in like a glass house overlooking the valley, and then Sigourney Weaver is living in what looks to be a very nicely furnished place, but it's, you know, modest in size, it's quiet, and then it cuts to Alexander, and he's in a wife beater, it's all dirty, and you can hear sirens outside his window. And then I'm like thinking, like, that's my apartment. Wait a minute, am I him? In this scenario, I'm him. You guys have already heard 3 sirens on the podcast tonight. But it just establishes a dynamic without having to over explain everything. You know, you're just showing somebody in a situation while they're having a conversation about another actor, and it's pretty ingenious storytelling.
And it's also a wonderful, I mean the parallels obviously between like him and Shatner, and and just his, not only his reputation, but also just the way that like the relationships he's had with various members of his crew over the years, you know. And it's funny, I was, you know, I mean, obviously Tim Allen like knew that. There's no way, you know, he didn't know that. But at all, like, I don't know. There's something there. I was actually trying to figure out who else, like what other actor. I mean, you mentioned Alec Baldwin, but like what other actor at that time would have worked in this role, and I couldn't think of anybody. Like,
yeah, there was a list that Steve Martin was on the list as well. And there was one other one, but I think that, you know, I love Harold Ramis. I think he's a genius. I've enjoyed nearly everything he's ever done, but I think that he was so wrong about being anti Tim Allen, because Tim Allen works so well
absolutely
in this role, especially based on like his history as an actor, who he is even today now, almost strengthens the character in the sense his like twisted ideology of like how, you know, far right he is still kind of works with this character. Like I can see Jason Nesbitt being a guy who is voting for tax breaks and not voting for you know, what's right for society.
Well, actors, they make that money,
but it, like you
get them into those tax breaks, so that's why a lot of actors and professional wrestlers end up on that side of politics, because like, they want to protect their their cash money.
You also brought up, like, you know, how the parallels of Shatner are quite obvious, but they are. There's also like the realization you have that like the rest of these actors outside of him are reliant on these gigs. Like this is how we make our money, and like and you see that even in their, you know, their living situations where it's like Sigourney Weaver probably has some other stuff going on, like maybe she does ads here and there where she's still able to utilize her beauty or whatever, take advantage of it, which was another thing Sigourney Weaver pushed for, where she's like, no, I'm gonna have a blonde wig and I'm gonna have fake breasts, like I can have like a breast suit made that I'm going to wear the entire movie. And they're like, what? And she's like, I have to be, you know, like a bimbo, basically. Like that's what it needs to be.
It just says what the computer says, and also her battle damage through the movie is just her chest becoming more exposed. That was a really funny little.
But like her combativeness to that was that like, but the character is aware of it. So the character is doing it. She's not gonna be a bimbo. She's gonna be somebody who's like weaponizing the bimbo status in order to like still have a career, which is interesting.
And then comparing that to Alexander, who is not number one, is the character who has the prosthetic on the whole time, so he's going to be less recognizable. He's also like the classically trained theater actor, you know. So he's in the crappy apartment.
I played Richard III.
Yes.
There were 5 curtain calls.
Like Alan Rickman was really good in this, and I was wondering. I didn't look into it really, but like, what kind of stuff was he in at this time?
Sense and Sensibility. Well, I guess it was probably 10 years earlier. Oh gosh, what else? Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1991.
Right.
Dogma.
Yeah. Dogma was actually like that year, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it's close to it.
So his comedy chops work as this like kind of straight man character, but you know, he's gonna be Hans Gruber to me. Forever, because I'm not really a Harry Potter person, you know, so I don't really know the Snape stuff. But
I mean, he's an Alexander Dane person.
Yeah,
he's this character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean, he didn't even like. I think his first movie was Die Hard. Like that was literally his first movie. He obviously worked in theater forever.
Yeah,
and he was like 40 when he did it, right?
Yeah,
and that's when his Hollywood career started. It was like he had his career up until that time, and this whole new career started afterwards.
He did a lot of TV shows on the BBC that looked like Bridgerton, and then he was in Die Hard.
Yeah,
that's what I'm seeing from his IMDb here.
Yeah, he did Truly, Madly, Deeply. Actually, a year or two after this, he did Love Actually.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was also in Hitchhiker's Guide. He was the
big-headed robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around, man. He's one of the most famous, recognizable. Like he's also a household name. Like you can say Alan Rickman, and most people will know who you're talking about. Not just because of the Harry Potter movies, people knew him before those.
Yeah,
that helped. That definitely helped. Severus Snape
it helped to make like people who were children know who he was.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Alan Rickman. I assume he was like pretty old though.
He was 69. He wasn't that old.
No.
69 is the new 59, as they say. Nobody says that.
No.
I'm talking about.
No, for me, he will always be the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Right.
I mean, yes, Hans Gruber, obviously, but also like the first time I ever saw him was in Robin Hood, and that was like, I was like, this is amazing.
Ronald Weasley.
This guy showed up for this movie, you know?
Yeah, Tim Allen, I think at this time, Tim Allen was just known for Home Improvement. Pretty much. And the internet didn't really exist yet, so they didn't even know about his.
I'm just glad that, because like Home Improvement was still happening during this.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that we didn't get a ton of like, oh no, like,
yeah.
You know, the whole.
They had that very special episode around this time where Jonathan Taylor Thomas gets like some sort of disease. They can't really say. They don't actually say what the disease is. It's heavily implied that it's cancer, but like it's so G-rated that they couldn't really like lean into it. And then I remember famously that episode was the lead-in to the brand new sketch comedy show, the Dana Carvey Show, which should have been a huge hit.
Oh no!
But this kind of destroyed its chances because everybody was so bummed out that now we have to watch Dana Carvey do voices.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I know we had to just go through 29 minutes of Jonathan Taylor Thomas crying, followed by Dana Carvey in a fat suit or whatever.
Wouldn't be prudent.
Yeah, dressed as George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Dead in the water. So do you want to move to the aliens picking up Jason and taking him on a magical journey?
Yeah, so he has like a big freak out at the convention on the nerds, which is out of character of him, as we realize shortly after we get the conversation between Sigourney Weaver and Alan Rickman on the phone, where she's basically telling us like, you know, no matter how many times he's blown up at us or like producers or directors, he's never done that to a fan. It was like frightening, like it was shocking. So we learned that like, you know, he seemingly is a really good guy, at least to the people who care about bringing him to where he got, which is, you know, stardom on a level that, you know, is in a lot of ways higher than some acting. You know, it's not as well paid, but you're more famous and more important to a larger swath of people who like you for the same reason, right? It's pretty crazy to think about, like Trekkies in general, just like loving Patrick Stewart.
Absolutely.
Or like Leonard Nimoy. His like whole career was
just anyone from Star Trek.
Yeah.
That was the anybody from Star Trek being beloved by so many people.
Yeah.
Unless you're Will Wheaton and you get shit on for 30 years. People are like, all right, we're sorry we were so rude and mean.
Yeah.
He was a child star. Think about all the things that come with that. You know, not only was I a child star, but also all the fans hated my guts.
Yeah. And told me.
Constantly.
And told me.
And sent me letters.
Yeah.
There are warehouses of unopened mail that bring death threats. Yeah. Shut up, Wesley.
Yeah.
I hate you so much.
The kid character on this show was interesting. I liked how they show him as a kid, like a little kid, and then he's like a fully adult.
The
crew.
Yeah, that was great.
I liked his character.
How you've grown. Like, oh, well, I remember like thinking, like, is he supposed to just be like a genius little kid from Earth, or is he supposed to be like an alien who looks like a child? Like, I didn't understand.
I just assumed he was Wesley Crusher. Like there's certain things where they've sort of taken things from TNG and they've taken the original series stuff and just kind of like, you know,
slapped it on top of
it.
He was probably a new addition to Galaxy Quest when that special episode. So the thing that's happening at the convention at the start, we forgot to mention, is that they're premiering a like lost episode.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting, which the aliens sort of think is like a new text. We'll get to why I say that in a minute. But they show up to the house, and did I get this wrong in thinking that Justin Long's characters were the ones that actually were calling for him to go do an appearance? Because later in the movie, when he runs into him, he's like, "You were supposed to be at this place, but you didn't show up."
He asks him if they can do something. It's a weird thing where he asks him about doing something with him and his friends, and then right afterwards, the aliens are like, "We need your help," and he's like, "Is this also about the gig? Okay, just have your people call my people, meet me at my house tomorrow at this time, and we'll then." And then those two things happen, and like it's like a thing where he thinks the conversation is still happening from one conversation to the next conversation. And if you're scatterbrained enough, that kind of stuff can happen all the time. Like sometimes I'll have like 4 different messages open and like be talking to 4 different people, and I'll forget who I'm talking to about what. Kind of thing. It's not that wild to me.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
He says something and I'm like, that's what conversation are we having now? Like, oh, I'm talking to the wrong person.
It's called Broken Brain. Steve, Broken Brain. So yeah, they show up and he gets into because he demands a limousine. That's like the one thing. Bring a limo. They do. And all he wants is a Coke. And then they start explaining, 5 million years of history.
And he's 11 out of 10 hungover, which he played really well.
Yes.
I couldn't help but think like he's playing this so well that like he's drawing from real life experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When somebody plays hungover in a movie a little too well.
Yes.
That was that for me. I really enjoyed him being stressed out by this whole experience because he thinks that these aliens are just saying nonsense about some sci-fi nonsense, but they're trying to explain to him that like their planet is in terror, they're in danger. Their whole.
Then he takes a nap.
He just falls asleep. You're like, okay, whatever.
He's like, I am listening. I'm just gonna open my eyes for a couple minutes, but you just keep talking.
But he also did hear some of it because when they get him on the ship, then he they say they're talking about like the evil aliens, and he's like, oh yeah, you said it was so and so, so he actually did retain some of the information that I thought that was awesome.
It's a talent that he's honed in the 80s of like being able to sleep and listen and nurse a hangover with a at the same time.
Yeah, just gotta get those quick 5 minutes. I remember like getting to work and going and laying down on like the the floor of the walk-in fridge and getting 5 minutes of sleep every couple hours to like just kickstart my battery.
Yeah.
You used to do that at the escape games too. You would come in and be like,
used
"Oh, we have a couch here. Thank God."
Yeah.
God, I gotta get a couple winks. It was a transitional time for me.
Yeah.
Well, we then get to be introduced to an impressive animatronic man who is Sarek and is the coolest shit. I just remember this is what made the movie for me as a kid. Like, I was already on board because everything was pretty funny up until that point, and there's like a certain amount of dynamism to the movie that is working for me. The music is working, the comedy's working, and then we get to see this amazing alien. And I'm like, that is sick. And this is like the same year as episode 1.
What's happening with his suit? I couldn't figure it out.
T-shirt for episode 1 right now. Look at that.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've got my collectible. Yeah.
Well, you went right. You knew exactly where that was.
I picked it up the other day. I look at this at least once a week. Thank you very much.
Take it out and like, wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Birds of a feather.
Right?
Yeah. What's going on?
What I was going to say. Oh, the robot, the animatronic.
So it's an animatronic face. The practical effects of these of all of these aliens, these like lizard guys, are fantastic.
Yeah,
so
the faces amazing. So
yeah,
like in episode 1, it was like some of the best animatronics that had happened in years for the Nemoidians, their mouth articulation and their eye articulation and everything. But that movie relied so heavily on CGI, right? So like, you got these really cool practical effects that were then overshadowed by like stuff like Jar Jar and Bulba and all that stuff. And Watto, like, not to say that those are necessarily bad. For the time, they're amazing. They still hold up to a degree, and then all the remastering that's happened over the years, they look pretty good still. But can't hold a candle to Sarek because this man looks so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I just watched the Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon not too long ago, which is his answer to a Star Wars. And I don't like it. I'm sure people like it, but I fucking did not. And one of my biggest complaints is that he's creating his own alien universe with like the most generic, boring ass looking aliens I've ever seen. Like, he doesn't even try. They look like, imagine like all the orcs and stuff from Lord of the Rings, but they don't do anything cool with them. Like, they don't give them the scars and the rings and the tattoos and all the stuff that make the orcs look cool and have personality. They just look like boring ass like rubber men.
They may as well be stormtroopers. Like, yeah.
And then you've got something like this where these guys look like they could be like bugs or squids or lobsters or vegetable people, like all mixed together, and you can't really tell what they are. And you're like, this is cool. And he's got these weird moving like fins on his back. And
he's got the things on his head that are like hair, but they're also like
they look like bug legs,
arms,
but because they're on his head, they almost look like something you'd pull them out of the ground with. Like, if they were like a baby, that's where you pull them out. Like, we are young in the ground. You just like pull them out. Like, yeah, I
like that. That's my new headcanon for these Sarek aliens. They're growing like turnips, and they pull them out of the ground when they
have our spawn farm.
We must harvest our spawn. They are ripe for the.
They are moons made of mud where we plant our seeds.
Okay.
Oh my god.
That's funny. That's good stuff.
The point I'm making is that Zack Snyder should have got a better art director for his movies. There are a couple of aliens in that look pretty cool. I thought the robot looked pretty cool, but overwhelmingly negative in terms of like the alien designs for that.
Is this comment a reference to Rebel
all
Moon?
The orcs are the same, but they just reskin them with different color palette. I'm not sure if he's referring to the Rebel Moon or if he's talking about the Lord of the Rings, but
well, the Lord of the Rings, they all look different.
They would try and make them have different personality, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe on a like grand scale, if you're looking at the entire army.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, but they'll be like, this guy has no nose, but it's sewn together, like the nose hole, but they sewed it up and stuff. Oh, he's talking.
Oh wait.
Okay.
Neither. Okay, thanks, Romine. You've done it again. Hand jobs and nonsense. We love you.
Hand jobs and broomsticks.
Yeah, that's the.
It's one of Angela Lansbury's best.
Yeah, canceled, Steve. How dare you? Oh, it's a Grandma's Boy reference.
Okay.
Oh,
That's a great movie. That's a underappreciated Sandler verse movie.
Yeah.
But also, I believe they reskin the elves in level 6 so that they look different from the characters in level 2 or whatever.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Another movie I've seen way too many times. So yeah, we're introduced to Sarek and his gang. Tim Allen is not catching on, but he is slowly kind of like he's impressed by everything. He's like, even when Sarek shows up, he's like, "Oh, that's good. That's scary. It looks real." But he's like fighting it through a yawn, and you're like, okay, so he's impressed, but he's not impressed enough to not yawn at what he thinks is a fake.
This might be one of my favorite cinematic misunderstandings I've ever seen, because he thinks that he's just walked into this like high tech, like, I don't know,
recreation. Yeah,
like a recreation of the show.
Yeah,
like, wow, everything looks just like the show. And that alien on the screen looks pretty good too. I don't remember him from the show, but he looks pretty good.
Yeah,
and then he just goes, fire them all.
He's like, fire all blues at full, fire all reds at full. That should send like lobster head running for the hill. Am I right? Am I right?
And he's like, man, that was fun. I gotta go.
Yeah.
But then
like,
he
Captain, where are you going? He's like, oh, I gotta go. I got a gig in 15 minutes. He's like, you just the negotiations you fired on.
But then they send him home in like a weird, like, I don't know, space elevator. It's the best way I could put it.
Yeah.
The special effect for that was a little jank, but
when the special effect when it opens up looks pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
He sees like the precipice of the universe.
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of They Live, you know, like when they live aliens are like going up to the platform and getting like shot off briefcases into wherever the hell that They Live aliens came from. Which I don't know if it was an homage or even a nod, or if it was just like coincidental, but like I got a lot of They Live vibes from it. I was into it.
Yeah, that's a good.
Maybe the They Live aliens exist in this universe. Maybe this is like
the same.
Yeah, that should be the sequel. The Galaxy Quest. You know, they're at a shared funeral for Roddy Piper and Tim Allen. Keith David is there. And Sam Rockwell is there. They have to team up.
Yeah, but also in this universe, like the Star Trek teleporters aren't invented yet.
Well, yeah, they have a
new technology, at least for the Thermians or whatever they're called. What are they called?
Yeah, Thermians. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
They have a teleporter, but they call it like a D. What are they called? A D. I want to say defraculator, but that's what it's from Mystery.
No, not
demoleculizer.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember it's like it cuts. It's like I'm going to cut into cubes, and I'm going to be on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's we've only tried it on a few people.
Yeah. It's not calibrated for Thermian physiology.
It has been calibrated, but now that he's here, we can do it together.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, we're gonna do it now. It went well, and he's like, but it is inside out. Like, oh.
It exploded,
and then it exploded. Yeah.
Around this time, there was another one of these sort of background aliens that I recognize. The actor's name is he played the fake Dean, JP Manu. He played the fake on Community, and he was also fake Moby on How I Met Your Mother. And I think fake Moby, that episode of How I Met Your Mother where they're in the streets of New York on New Year's Eve and they meet Moby, but it's fake Moby. That's one of my favorite episodes of sitcom television.
That's amazing.
And I always like when this guy pops up, because he is one of those character actors as well, but he always plays like bald guy number 2. This time he just was that character with a wig on.
Is that when the three of them come in? Like when they're like examining them and they're like, we forgot to put on our image transmutators or whatever.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The guy in the middle, he looked familiar to me as well, but I didn't bother to look him up because I don't care. But he looked like he looked to me like Zuckerberg, like this is when Zuckerberg was.
That's the guy I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure because the guy that I'm talking about, he's got those Zuckerberg eyes.
I call him doll's eyes, like a shark. Is it him? Is that the guy? Is that the guy you're talking about? Weird.
Yeah, I'll get him for you. I'll use this.
Well, I know what the Dean from Community looks like the fake Dean. Watched that episode 1 trillion times, or I guess series of episodes because he's around for a while.
He's in a whole season, yeah.
So he then leaves them to deal with Sarek's half exploded ship, which is great because then later you see him again and he's got like a crazy metal eye patch and like a robotic arm, and you're like, oh, he actually fucked him up, but like not to kill him. Which then, like in terms of like militaristic standing, that Sarek is now going to be absolutely on guard at all times because the moment he was caught off guard, he didn't expect these like peaceful idiot squid people to just like blast him with everything they had. If only he finished the job, then this movie would have been, credits could have rolled right after he went home and finished his Coke and went to Justin Long's garage to do the second job or whatever.
So yeah, we have sort of a long running joke that there could be a moment in a lot of movies where if something changes, there's
I love that.
Yeah, we haven't made a sting for it yet, and I think we're gonna
from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Bum, bum, bum.
Nice, yeah.
Credits. But yeah, there's a lot of I have one written down coming up in a minute too, but there are a lot of moments in this movie specifically where if they went left instead of right, the movie just ends. Yeah. I also wrote, I love how unserious Jason is during this.
Right?
He just like doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
He thinks it's all. Yeah, we talked about them,
but still not in a like he's still not a jerk. Like what I love about it is that he's phoning it in, but he's still doing the job.
Yeah,
he's trying to make the crew chuckle. Right?
Yeah,
which is actually one of the reasons that Alan Rickman had like an issue with Tim Allen on set. Is like he's like a consummate actor who takes it professionally. He's like, this is a job. We're doing a job, Tim. Take it seriously. Like Tim Allen's just being like, and like trying to make people laugh or whatever.
Yeah.
Eventually, apparently, like by the end of the movie, they grew together and like they appreciated each other's workflow and like how their process and everything.
So it's not like Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones on Batman Forever, where
Tommy Lee Jones seems like he's probably like a humorless prick at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But Alan Rickman apparently is like a very funny and a guy who appreciates comedy, and it's the reason he was so drawn to this script.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the funniest scripts I've read in years, and I love it.
Yeah. But he also didn't like suffer fools lightly, and he would tell you if he, thought you were an idiot.
But he also, from working on Dogma with Smith, became like good friends with both Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes.
Oh, right.
He like loved Jason Mewes for some reason.
Yeah.
So Kevin Smith tells
everybody loves Jason Mewes for some reason. Funny. By all accounts, in the history of anybody talking about this guy, he seems like one of those people that like would be insufferable to be around.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he's got that it factor. He's got that charisma, extra points in charisma that it goes the other way. You just love him because he's so ridiculous.
Well,
and Kevin Smith always. Sorry, what were you saying?
Well, I was saying Kevin Smith always tells the story about like how he would be on set for Dogma and he would look over and he would see Alan Rickman, like one of the most prestigious actors on earth, sitting with Jason Mewes, and they're just like talking and having like a real conversation. And Kevin Smith would be like, "What the fuck could these guys possibly be talking about right now?" And then he would go up to Alan Rickman and be like, "So, what were you guys talking about?" And Alan Rickman would be like, "Here's a true American original." Kevin Smith started calling Jason Mewes a true American original like forever after that because of Alan Rickman. It's like such a funny thing.
To put that in perspective, Kevin Smith always tells the story about the first time he met Jason Mewes was at that comic book shop from Comic Book Men. And Jason Mewes came in, he was like a teenager, and he came in and just started sucking inanimate objects off, like just walking around sucking things off. And Kevin Smith was like, I gotta know that guy.
Yeah.
So I feel like Alan Rickman saw that in him as well. And that's what I mean by you would think that Jason Mewes would be like this, just the worst person to be around.
Yeah.
He's got something that just makes him amazing to be around, because he seems
That's awesome.
so genuine and wholesome, and just wanted to be an actor and just wanted to, like, you know, pal around with his buddy Kev. But he had like horrible drug problems.
Yeah.
He would end up getting over, but there was a time when Kevin Smith wanted nothing more than to put his pal Jay Mewes in things, but he would just mess up over and over because of heroin, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to see him on the straight and narrow now.
Damn straight.
He's kind of a Steve-O in that respect, you know?
Yes.
Steve-O
Shout out to Steve-O.
Shout out to Steve-O for getting it together.
Yeah.
Hey guys, my Steve-O impression.
Oh my God.
So Tim Allen, in this moment where he's like, you know, how about we put it on Screensaver 2? And like, no one, he's like, okay, fuck. I feel like there's like a reflection of his, like, how he was off camera as well, right? It's like trying to make everybody goof around right up until they say action.
Yeah.
And then he totally fucks up their plan, which is to negotiate with Sarek, and then they go back to Earth, and he realizes, oh, I was on a real spaceship. This is insane. And
they're opening like a Best Buy. It's like a tech superstore.
Yeah. Buy Gragnall's hammer. You will not believe in the discounts. He's like, or the savings.
You will not believe the savings.
Yeah.
And Justin Long shows up. He gives him the shaft again. That's that question I had for you guys that I didn't really get what was happening there.
The old switcheroo where they bump into each other, and one guy picks up the wrong briefcase, the other guy picks up the wrong briefcase, and they go their separate ways. But in this case, it's transmitter radio things. I can't remember. They're like tricorders from Star Trek, kind of like the old like
communicators. Yeah.
The thing I had a hard time wrapping my head around for most of the movie, for some reason, I don't know why, it was that the aliens, the Thermans, like, made everything off the show. It didn't really click in my head for a little while. So when they got the communicators mixed up, I was like, how would they be the same? And it was right around that time that I was like, oh, right, because when he walks into the ship, he's like, wow, this is a really good replica.
Yeah.
So it started to really click for me that the ancient texts, they went further than just watching the old episodes and thinking it was like real.
Yeah.
They don't really explain that until like the next big scene. After. Which is trying
cool.
to,
I like it.
Yeah, him trying to like convince his crew that he just went to space.
Yeah.
And then they think he's just hammered or whatever. They're like, he's drunk.
Clearly talking about drunk.
Yeah.
Hashtag revive Radio Shack. You know, bring back Radio Shacks. I mean, the source is kind of that, but you know, going to the back of a Radio
Shack. The source is done too.
Oh yeah, the source is done now. It's like Best Buy Mobile or Best Buy Small Store or whatever it's called now. Those are probably going away too.
Yeah.
Sorry. Tangent.
This is our tech corner hour.
Yeah.
I used to like going to Radio Shack and going to the back of the store and just looking at little wires, little wires. Like, I don't know what this is for, but it's cool.
Yep.
I like looking at the remote control cars.
Yeah.
So they brush him off because they think that he brushed them off for this opening of a Best Buy or whatever the hell it was. And they kind of give him the cold shoulder, go into the shuttle van. It looks like they all travel together. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to something else after this. And then the voice of reason, Tony Shalhoub, is like, you know, maybe we should have just taken the gig. And, you know, it's the first, when's the next time he's going to ask us? And they're like, he was drunk. I think he was talking about a job. And then they all have this look of realization, like, oh, fuck, he was talking about a job.
Yeah, like a job's a job, man.
Yeah.
Solidifies again my theory that these people, like, they live off of these opportunities.
Yeah.
These small jobs of going to a Best Buy opening, or the conventions are probably their bread and butter for the majority of a couple of months at least out of the year. Like now,
Yeah.
I'll pay my rent and buy groceries. So they run after him into like a weird where it looks like they're inside the Best Buy, like the back of the Best Buy. And for some reason, Sam Rockwell is there, but I guess he was probably there to introduce them at the beginning of the opening of the Best Buy. And he's like creepily blocking a woman from doing her job. And she's like, but you live with your mom. And he's like, just like in the way. And he's like, what are you guys doing? Like, okay, this guy's a funny character, but now he's a creepy character.
Yeah.
He's creepy.
I also like, I know Sam Rockwell is not a very tall person, but it seems like in this movie, they're going out of their way to make him look short, like in every shot. Like he's supposed to look like he's at least like every time he's next to Sigourney Weaver, he's like a full foot shorter than her. You know,
Yeah.
It's like his hair is coming to her eye line.
She's also like tall though, isn't she?
Oh yeah.
But I'm saying that the movie is going out of its way to make him look short.
Yeah, they weren't throwing apple boxes at him. They were, yeah.
They might have been giving her an apple box.
Yeah.
To make it even more dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because his character is, I think, supposed to be like that something to prove at all points, but then when push comes to shove, he's a coward who finds his courage. I think that like I read somewhere that sort of Sigourney Weaver compared this movie to Wizard of Oz in the sense that all these characters are lost and don't feel like they have any purpose, and throughout the movie, every single one of them finds their purpose.
They get their thing.
Yeah.
They get their brains, they get their courage, they get their
Tim Allen gets a sense of purpose.
They all do.
Yeah.
They all have a nice.
They all find their sense of purpose, really.
Yeah. Let's say it one more time. They find their sense of what?
Their sense of purpose.
Oh, okay.
The word is purpose that you're looking for. Not to be confused with purpose.
They never give up.
Yeah.
Never surrender. You'll find your purpose. That's
Exactly.
Never give up or whatever. By the hammer of Grabther.
By the hammer of Grayskull, I will.
They do leave Tony Shalhoub behind, so they go into that little warehouse place. They all get gooed. They all get sent to the planet. They all have a crisis of faith after what they've witnessed, especially Sam Rockwell. And this was a moment where I was like, Sam Rockwell is such a good actor because the rest of them look like freaked out.
Yeah,
but Sam Rockwell looks like he saw the precipice of the universe in real life.
Yeah,
to prepare for this role.
There are times where he's making veins like pop in his skull, and his eyes are going red.
Yeah,
and he's got tears, and the veins
he looks
are going.
He looks like, sweaty, like he looks wet for like the rest of the movie from this point on.
Yeah,
and then when he doesn't look wet, he looks like he's about to sweat. Like he just finished having a panic attack, and he's like in the aftermath of it. But he's also on the brink of having another panic attack, like right afterwards. I think you're right, Jason. I think he is probably the standout performance in this movie because every time he's on screen, there's you're either cracking up or you're just like concerned, like worried about him.
I had this weird thing too where I thought that he was gonna like turn heel or join the side, like join the other side or something.
Oh, that's funny.
You know, like I don't know why that was in my head. Like I thought he was the foil of this movie, but he really isn't. He's just kind of like the on a cast of all comic relief. He's like the ultimate comic relief.
Yeah,
you know? He's kind of their Kramer, you know, or their Urkel. To put it in sitcom terms, but the thing is like he's like Steve just said, like he's kind of the standout, like performance of the whole movie. What are you laughing at?
I said Sam Urquell and I laughed. When you said Urquell, I was like Sam Urquell.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
That's great. I'm glad that I was like, what? It's also revealed at this point that the aliens are octopus weirdos.
Yeah, I like that they also have all these horrifying devices that are meant to go there. I don't know. One of them is like looks like that one of those like tools from The Simpsons when they're like, I call this one the scraper. It's like, oh god. And then Tommy Weber gets one like right in his ear, and he's like, it looks like he wants to scream, but he can't. And then Tony Shalhoub shows up late. I don't know, like, did someone say like we forgot Tony or like what happened here? But he just
I think he just wanders in like after them.
Yeah.
I think the whole point is to have him show up and be like,
That was a hell.
Yeah,
That was
that was a hell of a thing.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
take him even a second to like readjust. It shows shows them in the hallway right afterwards, and like him and Tim Allen are just walking normally, and they're using each other for balance and like trying it. They're kind of walking like the Thermians a little bit.
Yeah. And at this point, Tim Allen, like Jason is so excited at this point. Like he's excited to show it all to them. He's completely dialed in. He's completely on board. Like, and I love that shift in his character because it does show you right out, like very clearly that this is not a bad guy, you know, like he's just.
He's
like
he's a deflated man who didn't have anything to prop himself up with.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, him showing up late to that first introduction of his character is almost like it probably took him an hour to 2 hours to like work himself up into the persona of putting on a mask to be able to present himself at the convention. And like, I have to go there and I have to like be charismatic and talk to all these people about their most passionate hyper focus, and I have to be just as passionate back towards them.
Yeah,
it probably takes a lot of energy for him to do that. And you know, when he leaves and buries himself in a bottle of whiskey or whatever, that's just like the aftermath of being like, I am not as passionate about this as I used to be. And this is giving him his passion back. A real adventure, a real quest.
Yeah.
With me, find his sense of purpose. He literally is so lit up by it. He's like a kid in a candy shop. He finally gets to be that because he sees himself as their captain, even when they're just at a convention, right? So now that he gets to like, you know, when we learn through all of this that they've based their society around this show, they think it's ancient texts. I also wrote at this point, this is when I realized I didn't know the plot of this movie for real. Like I didn't know that this whole thing with the aliens thinking that they were, you know, they're meeting their deities basically. I didn't know any of that. So it's sort of like they're also fans at the convention, but there are real stakes involved.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, that's why the movie is so, even just like on paper, comical. Like just the premise in general is so funny and like so smart, and like it almost feels like an obvious idea, but like it clearly wasn't, because you know they hadn't really done something like this before nor after. And I mean, like, you know, that movie Paul, it was kind of felt like they were trying to do something like this, but it didn't work nearly as well. I don't hate Paul as much as most people do, but like, it's not Galaxy Quest, that's for sure. But it, you know, it has sort of the same. That's
an Edgar Wright movie, right?
Yeah. But it is, but it's not.
Well,
like
it's
not.
It's got Nick Frost and Simon Pegg.
But that doesn't mean that it's an Edgar Wright movie.
It's
not an Edgar Wright movie.
It wants to be.
Yeah, I'm sure that he was involved in some capacity. He was probably attached to direct at some point. But what I mean to say is that that movie has that sort of same, like, the premise is there and the premise is really funny, but in this movie they execute the premise and everything it's trying to do, in my opinion, it succeeds with. Like there's nothing really that they're trying to do in this movie that fails miserably or even is weak. There are a few weak performances here and there, but nothing in terms of like the structural setting of the movie. Everything works for me. I mean, we'll get to those weaknesses when I think that they're valid to talk about, because I just don't want to like shit on the movie when I don't need to. But this is the moment where we also get to see the understanding, or the lack thereof, for the Thermians, where they start to be like, yes, the historical documents, and you're like, okay, so now we're gonna learn that these guys don't understand that these are, they think they're watching the History Channel basically, or they're watching dramatic recreations of historical events.
And also, Jason thinks that like he's on the right. Well, he is on the right side of history, but he thinks that he's in control of the surrender. Because they're like, oh, we're here to negotiate a surrender. Obviously, these idiots are going to surrender to us. Yeah. But the reality is that they're supposed to be surrendering to Cirrus, and is that his name?
Sarek.
Green alien, Sarek, and it was really a moment where I also wrote down in my notes that was like, he's so stoked to just be on a spaceship that he doesn't realize the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
It just kind of goes, everything kind of goes wrong for the next 40
I think,
minutes.
yeah, he thinks that because on the show, he's successful in every episode, he's probably going to be successful. But he probably even thinks that, like, okay, if these guys have seen the historical documents, then these guys maybe have also seen the historical documents.
Totally.
And they're going to be scared of us because we're
scared of me. I'm a force to be
like
reckoned with.
essentially famous war heroes. That's not really covered in the movie, but like, you know, that could be considered, I don't know, I might call it a theory. Maybe he thinks that they're going to surrender because he is Captain what's his character's name again?
Jason Nesbitt.
Jason
Nesbitt.
That's the character's name. What's the captain's name? Captain. Oh,
What's
shit.
his name?
It's also Nesmith.
No.
Captain Starlight. Let's go with that. No, I can't remember. I don't remember anyone's name except for Guy because it's funny.
She's Madison.
Madison.
Yeah, Lieutenant Madison.
Peter Quincy Taggart.
Right.
Taggart.
Captain Taggart.
Yeah.
Right. Rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah. Like Captain
Peter
Kirk.
Quincy Taggart.
So they have their second encounter with, oh no, this is when they take off from the space station first, right? Before. And it's a very charming sequence where they go to the deck of the ship and they have they have the whole crew there, and then what's his character's name? Mathazar is like, Captain, would you allow the rest of the crew to be present for this historical moment? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so like the whole crew comes out, and this is when you get to see his work at like his actual tutelage at work, where I'm like, this man trained this entire room full of people how to do what he does, and he does it better than anybody else. But some of the other guys, the more like forward facing aliens, clearly have also given it their own juice. Like they have their interpretation of it, and I think it works so well because it makes you feel like, oh yeah, they're doing similar things, but they're also different. Like they're different. They're not all doing the impression that he's created. They're trying to give it their own character, which is fun. And then we have is his name Malenko? The guy, the Tommy Weber, the kid who's like the pilot. Laredo. Yeah. And he there's like a funny moment where he's like, well, I'm glad I don't have to be the captain for this one. And then he's like, all right, take us out. He's like, what? He's like, oh, they built the ship studying your handbook, man. You got to do it. And he's like, okay. Yeah. And apparently this is the moment where the script was greenlit, where they read this moment and they're like, oh yeah, this is going to make this millions.
That is such a great little nugget, because I mean, all of those actors, you know, like Brent Spiner, Will Wheaton, everybody that had a console that they sat at had a set of things that they did specifically. I just like that is such a nerdy little, I love that so much.
But it's also hilarious that like they all those characters you just named also within the context of Star Trek had like years and years and years of Starfleet and real world training before they ever got behind those controls.
Yeah.
It's like right away, like an actor being like, oh, and he does it. He gets them out.
Yeah.
With a little bit.
There's that scene later in the movie where he's literally just watching old episodes.
So good.
Doing
I love that.
Yeah, he's like, metal to the metal, Captain. And he's like,
yeah.
And then it like scrapes. I just as an aside, 20 years later, 25 years later, actually, this is like the 25th anniversary of this movie, basically. They don't make movies like this, in that they don't make ideas with like brand new ideas in the same way that they did in the 90s.
They do not.
That's the thing I like about this and Mystery Men and even Starship Troopers a couple months ago when we covered it. It just doesn't feel like we get new ideas sometimes.
Yeah.
But big sci-fi movies are always like Marvel or DC superhero movies nowadays, or like some other franchise that's been beaten to death. Even the new Planet of the Apes movie was like the 4th one in the series, and it just like felt like a reboot and rehash. You know, so it's really, I was watching this movie going, this isn't brand new idea, and it actually it delivers on a brand new idea. It doesn't fall on its face. You could mess this if Harold Ramis directed this movie with what he wanted, the movie might have fallen on its face. This, whatever this director did and this team that put this crew together, like they just knew what they were doing, and they knew that this would work, and then it worked.
I think that Harold Ramis's version of this movie would have been drastically different. I don't know if it would have been bad, or better. I just think it would have been its own thing. It would have been completely different from this. I read through some of like the original draft stuff for the script. The beginning of this was like Alexander Dane's character was the villain originally in the series, like this recurring villain, like almost like a Khan from Star Trek. And the actor who played that character was like supremely jealous of Tim Allen's character. And he somehow, and he became a successful science fiction writer, like in between the time of the show airing. And so he was famous and wealthy in his own right, but he still hated Jason Nesbitt. So he somehow found a way to like make a connection with an alien race, and like found a way to teleport there and became like an emperor of that.
Oh, weird. Okay.
And it was like this whole different thing.
Yeah.
You know, like it sounds almost like a space opera, or like an epic saga at that point. I much prefer this, where it's just like, you know, fish out of water humor mixed with like people who are pretending like they know what they're doing, and works out in the end. Or like, you know, the Wizard of Oz analogy that I used earlier, which is like, they're just people who have lost themselves finding themselves, and it's I think it works really well. I wouldn't mind seeing that other version, but it would be kind of wild.
This movie, I mean, it has all of those things, and then it's got this like heart that rings so true. It's this like perfect package of all of those things, you know. And I feel like, I don't know, like a different take on the story, different actors, different direction.
I feel like in that like that 90s nostalgia bow, which I've been trying to like put on all of these movies this month, because it means so much to me, because it's just like what movies were at one point, right? And movies are so different now than they were back then. And I do miss them, but you know, if you watch a movie try to emulate the 90s sensibility of movie making, you end up with something like that Pop-Tart movie that came out recently, the one that Jerry Seinfeld made. Not that great.
The one that Jerry Seinfeld is like getting canceled over because he's revealing how much of a boomer he is.
But it's not the movie that's canceling him, it's him that's canceling him. The movie is fine. Like there's nothing really wrong with the movie. He's not telling any jokes that are bad in the movie. He's just blaming his own like personal politics over his movie not doing well. And it's like, the movie's not doing well because it's not a great movie. I'm sorry. There's a couple of moments in that movie that made me LOL. I'll tell you right now. I watched it and it's not good. I didn't like it. But there are at least 2 moments where I laughed aloud. And it wasn't like clever writing. It was because of performances. There's like a moment where these 2 kids, and they're jumping from dumpster to dumpster, and Seinfeld's like, what are these kids doing? And this like guy in he's in a garbage truck, and he's like, oh, those kids are here for the ooze. And he's like, the ooze? And he's like, the ooze. And he's like, the ooze? And he's like, the ooze. Like this like garbage truck driver is just yelling ooze at Jerry Seinfeld, and it made me laugh. And then later on, there's those same 2 kids, like, you know, those like butt massaging machines from like the 60s or whatever, like where it's like bees that roll on your butt. This kid is looking at it, and his candy necklace gets sucked into it, and it explodes, and it's this slow motion sequence where everyone's like, and it's like a war montage kind of thing where the music is really intense. And then his sister runs up to him, and he's like lying on the floor, and she's like, how many more have to die? And she like looks at Jerry Seinfeld, and it's funny. It's fucking funny. Rest of the movie, not funny. But those two moments, funny, worth it.
Worth it. I got the gist. I got the funniest moments from you explaining them, so I don't need to watch it now. Probably.
Nice.
Probably funny.
Thank you.
Explained it too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so it was funny to me because I wasn't expecting to laugh. You know, when you're
Right.
expecting somebody to kick you right in your funny bones. Well, it got me.
The mess hall sequence.
Oh, a very fun. I remember this from the trailer when I was a kid. And
Mhm.
this movie's gonna freaking rule. I love Star Trek. I love every time when I watch a Star Trek and Worf is eating something weird. Like when I'm a kid, I love it. Or like when Riker goes to stay on the Klingon ship for a bit, and they're like, "Can you handle Maklach?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I can't do it. You can handle it." I'm like, sick. Riker's sick.
Mhm.
It's better when it's live. It's like it's not the same if it's not wriggling on the way down.
That's this sequence.
That's pretty much what happens here. And
Yeah.
we also talk about the Omega device, and when they're like, yes, Saris tortures people. That's when they realize the gravity and they try to just bail. They're like,
yes,
yeah.
Then they try to talk.
It's lopsided in terms of tone here, but like it is beneficial, right? Because like it's the comedy of them like all joyously eating, and then Alexander is like just like mother used to make. He's eating like live frogs or whatever,
live ticks and worms,
like giant ticks. But then it goes from that jovial moment to Mathazar being like, okay, let's put on the video while we're eating our dinner, I suppose. And it's a pretty heavy moment, and like there are a few of these throughout the movie, particularly at the end, which we'll get to when we get there. But like there's these moments that are like so heavy, and you now are like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be PG-13, and these are the moments that like sag it to the point that like this is the PG-13 line, and if it sags anymore, you're in PG-13 territory. You have to pull it up a little bit. Obviously the Sigourney Weaver saying fuck this is like way down into that sagging point. Yeah, I don't know, man. There are some parts that like kind of freaked me out a little bit, and this is one of them. I remember being like, oh shit, I thought this was funny. I thought this was a aha movie. I'm now scared.
Yeah, they go back to Sarek to try to be like, yeah, it was a misunderstanding. I didn't know that I was on a spaceship. And Sarek is like, haha, I have you right where I want you, basically.
Yeah.
And he tries to nuke the shit out of him again. And then they're talking about him while he's on the screen. Like he's on mute. And Tawny or Gwen, whatever you want to call her, she's like, because Tim Allen goes like this, like to mute the thing. And she's like, I thought you meant kill him. I didn't know that meant mute. He's like, obviously this means mute.
She's like, I thought you meant we're gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah.
She's like I know where the fucking mute button is. Like, are you insane? Like, how would I know? We just got
Sarek hears that and he's like,
perhaps I am not as ugly as I am stupid.
Like,
yeah.
Jeez.
That's a great moment of him thinking like, he's like, I'm the captain.
Yeah.
I'm the captain. Like, this is my crew.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
I'll everyone will figure it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, he also says like he's as ugly as he is stupid, which is like one. Has anyone ever said that in real life, or is that just like
Oh yeah.
I would probably say something
that
worse.
to people all the time. You're as ugly as you're stupid. You know that? They love it. It's something you want to hear.
They love it. It is a funny moment, but it's also one of those moments where the audience is like, "Oh, come on, Jason, just listen." He keeps being like, "Not now, Gwen. Not now, Gwen. I'm doing something over here," which is like just shuffling Guy over to a console, sitting him down, and being like, "Press all these buttons until he's dead."
And at this point, they get fired on a bunch by Sarek, and they hit the turbo, not really knowing the consequences of that, and they end up in they end up in a minefield, which is sort of a Chekhov's gun thing for later in the movie.
Yeah,
which comes back, and the ship gets messed up completely.
Is it weird
then
that
we-
like I know that Chekhov's gun, the concept is not from Star Trek, but every time I hear it, I think about it.
we take a Chekhov from TOS.
Like, why isn't it Chekhov smoking laser
Nice.
or phaser? I should say.
Smoking phaser.
Yeah.
You guys want to smoke some phaser? But they basically, after they go through that sequence, the ship is all messed up, and the beryllium sphere, which powers the ship, is broken down.
This is something that bothered me since I was a kid, where they're going back and forth with the computer, which is a pretty funny joke, which is like Weber's character is the only one that can talk to the computer.
Yeah.
And she keeps repeating it back to them, and they're like, "You don't need to repeat that part." She's like, "I'm gonna fucking do it, man. It's my
I have
only
one
job.
thing that I do here, and I'm gonna
It's
do it.
stupid, but I'm gonna do it.
I know it's dumb. We all know it's dumb. But
Yeah.
What else am I supposed to do?"
Mhm.
But it always bugged me that like they didn't have a backup one on the ship. I was like,
Oh yeah.
why the hell don't they have a backup?
Well, yeah.
And they don't explain why. Like, give me like a half a second of dialogue just saying like they were in the back of the ship and the back of the ship blew up. They got sucked out into space.
Don't they even say like, well, obviously you have another one on the ship. Let's just go get the backup.
No,
like, nope. No,
we never needed one before.
Well, that's the thing, right? Yeah. I mean, in all of the historical documents, if there was never a need to replace the beryllium sphere,
that's right.
Why would they?
That would have been funny. That kind of would have been a funny moment, right? It's like,
yeah.
What do you mean you don't have a backup? And it's like, in all of your adventures and your historical documentation. Yeah, like
I like this comment here.
I mean, maybe that was a deleted scene. Who knows? But then we kind of get like, in my opinion, sort of the weakest moment, but also is rife with pretty funny moments. So like it feels good, but it is sort of like a lopsided part of the movie to me. But I still like it. Like I'm just saying, like structurally, it now becomes an episode of Star Trek, right? Like it's instead of it being a movie, it's now just an episode. It's an episodic moment within a cohesive story.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Them going down to the planet, the movie sort of becomes like you could make a series of like TV shows that all happen within this section of the movie, where they go on a bunch of adventures to like maybe put the ship back together, or they just have to do a bunch of.
I mean, I was going to save this to the end, but like I would absolutely watch this if it was a show. And then as I was like,
oh my god,
that in concept. The Orville is kind of.
I was just going to say the Orville is a little bit
it
this
is
kind of thing.
Funnier Star Trek, but even if you watch Orville for long enough, like the comedy is there, but it's more Star Trek-y than it is Family Guy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There are like many lists of people signing petitions on the internet of like bring back the Orville that have been inexistent for a long time, and it's like, that's fair because the Orville kind of cracked the Star Trek code in a way that even new Star Trek hasn't really been able to crack in ways. Outside, I think like Lower Decks, the cartoon show, like that show feels more like TNG than any of the new Star Trek shows.
It's so good. Apparently, Seth MacFarlane is writing another season.
I hope that it gets made because it's fun and I like it, and it feels Star Trek-y, and like they've done enough world building with the different races they've created and stuff that I'm like, oh, this is like real lore. Like this, they're not just making it a joke. It starts as a joke and then they break it down into like real stuff, or maybe it starts as real stuff and they're like, how do we make this jokey? But I don't know, but it works for me.
I think that's how he sold it to the network in the first place. I think that's how he can convince Fox to let him do it.
Right.
Was, oh no, it'll be super funny, don't worry. And then within a short period was like, okay, we got this. Yeah. Now I can make the show I want to make. Yeah.
But he's like inserting like, how many dick jokes do I need to insert for it to get past the?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of taking F-bombs out, he's like
inserting them. Yeah. That's funny.
Right before they go to the planet, though, they sort of try to explain that they're actors, but they get point where they're like, okay, so like Gilligan's Island, like how that's not, and they're like, what do you mean?
Those poor people. Yeah.
Surely you don't think Gilligan's Island, and they all like gasp and like go quiet for a moment. Like,
Yeah, they don't know what deception or lies are until Sarek introduced it, and
which is like very sweet. It just makes you like the smiles that they have are there. You're like, oh, maybe they didn't program these smiles like how they are all the time. They have this sort of like quaint smile on their face because all they want to do is like interact with you and help you, and that's their nature as a species is to be exceptionally helpful and like be happy to do it and like get their joy from helping other people, which is like super sweet and nice, but also that race is going to get bullied by the crab men of these.
It's like crabs versus octopus. Or the crabs are like
his favorite app on his phone.
Crabs versus octopus coming to an app store near you. Patent pending. But yes, they go down to this planet and they have a hilarious attempt at a Star Trek style adventure that goes wrong at every turn. They do get it together a little bit because they do make it out of there with the beryllium sphere. But guy freaking out entering this planet because he's gonna die obviously because he's like for it. And he's like the day player guy, and
you get like his best performance throughout it as well. Like the whole journey down is him being like, I want to go back, and they're like, but what after the stink you made about coming? He's like, I thought that I was gonna die up there, but now I'm realizing I'm gonna die down here. And like, oh god, this guy is fucked. He's like, oh yeah, what's my last name? And nobody knows. They're like, you have a last name, and he's like, do I have a last name? I don't know. And he's having like the worst existential crisis of all time ever been captured on camera, and it's good. Like his performance is good. It's not goofy, it's good.
It's good. Fred, when they land, Fred Kwan immediately just opens the door like without thinking twice. That's
so good.
The little scene from our intro video where he like just sniffs the air and breathes it in quickly. Which I think is a really funny like visual gag of like, this dummy being a dummy. And this was the moment that I was like, this is the credits. Like they open the door and all their heads explode. And then the credits. Just want to give you guys a heads up. It is 10:15, and the thing about this movie that I found weird is shortly after this next little bit, it just goes right into the final boss, final boss sort of segment. So we are kind of on track, but we do have a couple things we do after we explain the plot. So I'm just going to kind of move us along a little bit more. We've touched on a lot while talking about this stuff. So they see the aliens that we talked about earlier. Gwen thinks that they're cute. Guy's still worried. They turn out to be horrible demons because we do see one of them like hobble out.
But we do have like this amazing moment where it's like this slow pan on Guy as he's like, yeah, they're cute now.
Yeah.
Soon they're gonna be nasty, and there's gonna be a million more of them. And like he predicts everything that happens within the next 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Like the funniest thing. And then they decide to use a maneuver that they used earlier in the series, like in episode 81.
Yeah.
Episode 81 is the episode where I die. Like he's
like, no, that was episode 51, right?
It's basically like this pile-on of Sam Rockwell's character just being piled on over and over and over.
Yeah.
And every single one of them are hilarious.
And even just like at the tail end of it, Sigourney Weaver's like, let's get out of here before these little things kill Guy. You know, it's just the perfect little boop.
I wrote that in my notes as well. I'm glad you brought it up because that part made me pause the movie just so I'm like, this is so funny.
And also we see Captain Taggart try to do some roll maneuvers that are just pointless.
Yeah.
What was that for? Like, I don't know.
The low-hanging fruit of like Alexander like being like, this way, and they start moving and he's like, wait, that way. Yeah, he's holding it upside down, and you're like, okay, this is
With the compass backwards.
that's classic comedy, like it's like
Yeah. They get pursued by the aliens. It's also I didn't get. So it's like a mining facility that they're at. Are these little alien guys? Because they were like, were these aliens like the miners of this facility?
I think not.
No, I think.
But then Tony Shalhoub is like, yeah, obviously. I mean, they couldn't be more than like 7.
Which is also classic. Like that's a funny.
And he's like, miners, not miners. Good. I think that the point of that is that we don't know. Like, I doubt they were they were probably the things that killed the miners and ate them because they're clearly cannibalistic. They eat their own.
Yeah. So they managed to get out of there. The transporter ship is like getting swarmed by them. Jason's kind of underneath a pile of them. They make it out of there with leaving him behind. And then we get two kind of simultaneous great sequences where he's trying to like fight off a pig monster thing that's very reminiscent of that, like kind of that first fight from TOS.
Oh yeah, with the Goron.
Fighting the Goron.
Yeah,
the Goron. And he's trying to figure out what to do on the planet, and they're trying to figure out how to use the beam me up Scotty device. What's that called? I'm sorry.
On Star Trek is a transporter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the little ship was called transporter too.
It's a shuttle.
Yeah, it's a shuttle or a transport.
Yeah, a transport shuttle. Yeah.
Haven't you watched all of Deep Space Nine?
8,000 times? No. Yeah. It's on in my house a lot because my wife is
nice.
Person, so I see bits. I always call Odo Obo, and I always just say their names wrong, like an old man. And,
oh my god!
He hates it. Star Trek fans hate it.
Yeah,
I know, but I love Star Trek, and I do it too because it's funny.
Obo and Quack.
There's that where I just referred to everybody on Deep Space Nine as Obo. When Obo goes to Obo's and like Obo and the Obos to get into a fight with each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's that Klingon, the woman Klingon from Voyager, and I walked into the room and said, "Oh, they're Star Trek is woke now." She didn't like that either.
That Klingon has visible tits. I don't like this.
I don't like it. Yeah. So anyway, they're trying to like beam him up. They beam up the pig by accident. It's inside out and explodes, which I thought was a really funny little gag.
Yeah. So they shout out to the motion picture too, Star Trek the motion picture, because there's this like in the first 10 minutes of the movie, there's this horrific scene where they have a transporter accident.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's like screaming and there's like and they're talking to somebody like in the other place where they sent the people and we didn't get them all. Like,
yeah, that was like Star Trek being like, this ain't a TV show, no.
Yeah,
this is a movie.
Yeah,
a horrifying death.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty fucked up. That first.
Oh my god, yeah.
Overall, that movie is kind of wild. Like everything.
Yeah,
like they look like they're wearing like disco pajamas for their uniforms.
Disco pajamas without any undies. Thank you very much.
Crazy.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Get yourself a dance belt, gentlemen.
That's true.
The outline of Captain Kirk's
and that moment where they're going, they're having like where they're going through space, and it's like a weird. Everything's like
they go through a wormhole.
Yeah, and it's like everything is so weird, and I'm like, I think I've had a nightmare like this.
Photon torpedoes. Yeah,
everyone's talking slightly too slow.
It's insane.
It's just frightening.
Yes.
Yeah. The first one is an acid trip.
Yes.
You need to watch
a very long acid trip.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it like 2.5 hours, I assume?
It's really
and then
long.
They meet God at the end. And like, what is God named the starship?
That's actually 5.
Oh, sorry, wait. I mixed it up.
Which one has the whales?
That's number 4.
And that one's good. I like that one.
4 is awesome. Yeah.
They go to San Francisco and
they go to Space Earth, right?
Spock is like
yeah.
Again, Spock pretends to be Asian for some reason.
Oh my god! Yeah.
I'm Asian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's highly logical that I'm Asian.
Absolutely.
How did you use those outdated words, Captain? Well, they won't listen to you unless you call them a motherfucker, Spock. I see, Captain. That is logical.
Oh my god.
The thing that I liked about the rock monster appears. It looks exactly like a rock monster golem from the Zelda games, like the newer Zelda games. It even comes out of the rocks, like in Breath of the Wild, or in like.
So clearly, they stole it from this movie.
Nope, didn't say it. Didn't want to even go there with that because Steve thinks that I think that everything is stolen retroactively for somehow.
Yeah.
But that's what it reminded me of. I thought that we were talking about it a little bit at the top of the show, but I thought that the animation for this was fine for the time. It wasn't amazing, but it also, there's a scene when they warp it onto the ship and it's going through the hallway, smashing the hallway up, and it looked disproportionately good to the special effect of the golem itself and how good the destruction of the hallway was. So it served its purpose. It was good for the time.
They were
I'm
still
sure
figuring it out. George Lucas was hoarding all the technology until episode.
Yes, he was.
Like, all right, I'll give it out.
He had people like inventing it at that point. You know?
This was also made at ILM. All the special.
Yeah, it's
it
DreamWorks,
was.
right?
But yeah, this would have been like they would have been figuring this out. Wow,
that's cool.
Episode 1 stuff, but I guarantee.
Oh, they were busy. Yeah,
one had a top priority, and then
yes,
Quest. They're like, yeah, well, the rock monster will come later.
Yeah,
we'll recycle some of the rock parts from the pod racer scene.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna figure out Jar Jar Binks. You know how they like reanimated Sonic for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie? Like they had a Nightmare Sonic, and then they made a new Sonic. I want to see Nightmare Jar Jar Binks.
I saw actually a maquette, a little maquette of him, and his eyes were more like stocky, and it was even just that was like.
If you watch the Clone Wars cartoon show, he looks more like the animatronic than he does like the actual character from the movie. And I do a Star Wars channel, and I just had to do my first one where I played Jar Jar, and it's all Darth Jar Jar stuff. So I'm playing an
amazing
version of Jar Jar. We cleaned it up a little bit so it's not problematic. But we named the character, instead of Jar Jar Binks, we call him Jojo Siwa.
Amazing.
Works very well. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Come here, bitch. That's going to be a dated reference in like 4 seconds.
Yeah, also not a lot of that is true. Some of it is true, but not all of it.
But I'm not going to tell you which part.
Exactly.
When they get back,
I would have never left around.
When they get back, they also find out that like, well, you have friends and family back home. It's going to be fine. And they're like, actually, our home world was destroyed.
Yeah. We are the only ones left. Sorry.
And Sarek shows up and they show him the Galaxy Quest is a TV show. They show the Thermans. And they're basically this is the last little bit here.
This is the sprint to the finish. We haven't done a movie like this in a while where they quite literally sprint.
They front load the movie.
No, it's not that they front loaded. It's like it's front loaded to a point where you're like, okay, so the story is starting now. And then they have this big chunk of them getting this one rock, and then everything is solved. So they introduce a threat right at the end, and it's just a sprint to solve it before the running time ends. Or they're like, we gotta solve the problem. But then they solve it, and then there's this other weird lingering chunk at the end that is like almost all in slow motion that you're like, why is this here? Like, they don't need it, right?
So basically, Sarek shows up. They board the ship. They sort of shut it down. Jason and Lazarus have like a fake fight to create a diversion.
Always good. It's a real Indiana Jones moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Indiana Jones always has that guy that he has to fake fight to get out of a sticky situation. In every one of them, they always.
I love when somebody really sells figuring something out, changing their tone like mid scene. Like, Rickman is like, "How dare you?" And he's like, You remember in episode 17, when you stole that monologue, you fucking hack? And he's like, yes, of course, you egomaniac. And they go at each other, and it's very good. When done right in a movie, it's charming. When done wrong, it's just like flat and boring. But I don't think this was flat and boring at all.
No, this was good. Yeah. We see some aliens get sent out of a chute, which I wrote down, which is the bad boy aliens. Space Cadet Tim likes your Alan Rickman. I think it's also pretty good. Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's like he's here from beyond the grave.
Jason Nesbitt. It's pronounced Leviosa.
That's great. They need to shut down the reactor before it explodes or something. So they remember that Justin Long was a huge nerd. His name's Brandon. They remember that he was a huge nerd and probably knew how to solve this situation because he knows more about the show than any other living human being in the history of the planet. This character, I liked it or whatever, but the whole him knowing how this weird science works doesn't make sense if it's all mostly fiction. They never alluded to it. It makes sense. But they never alluded to it being based off any sort of real science, though.
That's the thing, okay. Is that because everything is based on it all works because it was on the show. That's the thing that you have to let your brain do.
Yeah, suspend.
The fact that the transporter works when there is no actual technology that can do that, it's because it worked on the show.
And these guys
and again,
the advanced technology to be able to create it based on the blueprints of it working in the show.
Exactly.
In Star Trek, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, things are based on theoretical extrapolations of what we could potentially do if we had these things in place.
Yeah.
So science fiction writers will be like, I want this to happen. And then engineers and people who know how those things could potentially work give you the solutions to how, but there'll be holes in it where you can't do it because of our own limitations as human beings and the materials that we have. But if you give it to an alien civilization, they might be able to fill those holes and improve upon the technology. So, if you just sit back for a second and be like, oh yeah, these squid aliens figured it out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, the squid aliens have the technology to turn themselves into humanoids. Therefore, the Omega-13 works.
It works. Yeah. So
and that's science.
The Omega-13 thing is the only thing I don't get because that was the only thing that was never explained in the show. And even the hyper nerds of the show are we don't know what it means, but everything that we've read about the show leads us to believe that this is what it could do based on what it is.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because then there is this weird hole of theory where it's where did they come to that theory? The movie doesn't explain it to us, but it's they came to that conclusion.
It might also be a reference or a commentary on how science nerds, sci-fi nerds, always hate time travel because it never makes any sense.
I think that was a thing that was created after this movie.
You think that was that idea? Okay.
I don't think that came into popularity until Dan Harmon went on a rant about it. I think that's when it really kind of took off.
When we went on that rant that was now you see me too. Why is it called Now You See Me Too? It should be called Now You Don't.
Yeah. It was that same episode, and then he just talked about why do people love time travel? It's dumb. I also think time travel is dumb for the most part, but
I love it.
I don't hate it when it's done right, and I think that it can be done right. I just think that most of the time when people use time travel, it's dumb. A lot of the time.
Have you seen 12 Monkeys? Have you watched the show?
I haven't watched the
show.
I've
seen the movie.
It is time travel done in the best, most complicated, twisty way that pays off so well.
That's good.
Oh god, it's so good.
I forgot that show existed, and I watched the movie during COVID. I had never seen it, and I really like the movie. It's really weird.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think that a show version of that, it's probably grittier than even the movie
Yeah.
is, because it's what network is it on? Like
It was on Sci-Fi.
okay, so
Yeah.
okay, so it's
I just
probably
have
a little
like a weird
cheese. but-
diabolical idea that would be like I would show Jason a time travel movie he's never seen before, and I would take "Karma's a bitch, I should have known better," and I would edit the movie so it's in there somewhere, like just weirdly in the background, so that you'd be like, "Wait, what? Did you hear that?" You're like, "No, I didn't hear anything."
I'm not that brain rotted.
I know, but maybe I could do it. I could maybe do it to someone. Maybe not Jason. Now that I've told him that I was,
I'm pretty brain rotted though. I'm not that mean where it's like I'm going to eat bros eating dinner. Not that mean. Anyway, they get the other nerds involved to help save the day. Did you notice the like perfect video chat that the somehow had?
Yeah, I was like, these guys got great internet for 1999.
Yeah.
We can't even
really watch
out on a
you
weekly
barely
basis
stream
for our
video on.
2024 podcast.
Yeah, it looked like this
Yeah.
in 1999 somehow.
Also, I found it highly unbelievable that only one of them they all had different deck files. Like you have to, like when you transfer a file to someone,
True.
it like doesn't stay on your computer. It like leaves. Like I gave him the files. He has the files. It's like a library book on the internet.
Which was a thing, like wasn't a real thing then, but in movies and TV shows they treated files like there was one copy of the file.
Yeah.
I took it off his computer with this disc. It's like a book that you can fit in your pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you copied and pasted it, and it's
We did,
everywhere.
remember
You
when we
copied.
did the net that
Yeah.
that movie? I was like, oh, good,
Oh my God, the net.
I'm gonna order a pizza on my computer. You're like, oh fuck.
You're like, no way, that's science fiction, buddy. I could never order a pizza through a computer.
Oh my
Now
God.
I'm like, I'm hungry.
You just press a single button.
Yeah.
I don't even use my phone as a phone ever. I mostly
They
just
should
order
stop
pizzas
calling
from
it a phone, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a pocket computer. It's a pocket computer. So it leads them through the ducts. The Omega 13 device is like this. It can either rearrange matter or destroy worlds, as they point out. It has a little time travel thing, which is perfect because it rewinds 15 seconds of time.
Well, this is the thing.
So
is like,
perfect.
it's
And
all.
also, can you use it multiple times or just once? And that's
This is
it?
the thing. Is it's all theoretical. Nobody knows because the whole the end of that show was like activate the Omega 13. So like nobody ever knew what Omega 13 did because it wasn't finished.
Okay.
And like the show wasn't finished, so even the Thermians didn't know what it was supposed to do. So they just like made it somehow. I don't know who knows.
Yeah.
But the main theory was that it can just destroy everything in a matter of like seconds. But there are many people, this is Justin Long talking now, like there are many people who believe that it could be something that lets you go back in time for exactly 13 or like back in time 13 seconds. And Sigourney Weaver being the Beverly Crusher style, like what? Or like the Riker style, like what the fuck can you do in 13 seconds? It's like,
yeah.
I mean, you could do one good thing. That's what you could do. One single mistake that you made 13 seconds ago.
This fact is not fun, Tim. This fact makes me feel like I'm going to die soon.
That's why I'm wearing this shirt.
Yeah.
Not because you're going to die, but because of the episode.
I mean, that doesn't make me feel that weird.
30 years ago, this movie's 25 years old.
TNG was on before I was even sprouted from the womb. So
I was not unsprouted.
our android heart. Okay, so
this is we see the 80-yard over line as they're about to go through the chompers, which are just like in a spaceship. There's a place where there's things like will chomp you. And she says, "What the heck?" But she clearly says, "What the
she
fuck?"
says,
Which
screw that, and then instead of saying "fuck that,"
Yeah.
screw that.
yeah,
Fuck that.
fuck that. So screw that. Oh, I wrote "What the hell."
I
I remember.
Oh wait,
now.
that
Like,
was me.
I make little notes to myself, like I
Mhm.
predict things in my notes, and then I'll read them on the show like they're facts. And then
Yeah.
it's like, whoops, just reading the thing I wrote.
Also, like
this-
trying to match the word screw to the word fuck.
It's so funny.
Mouth movement, you're never gonna be able to.
No.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part of the movie, honestly. Just because it's just like they clearly wanted something different from this movie, and it's still great, but they were like, let's show this adult movie to kids because there's some like this is one of those like Labyrinth style movies for some kids, I bet, that they watch this and there's moments in it that are just too much for a 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They beam up the rock monster to fight the boys. We get that weird scene where Chan makes out. So Chan and the girl are making eyes throughout the whole movie. I also had a moment that was like, these aliens are girl aliens and boy aliens, and it's the 90s, so we don't think about it harder than that.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting. But anyway, they make out.
I assume they're like all like gendered and asexual. They just like chose which one their character liked from the show, and like, I'm gonna be this.
True. And that's the way we look at it now.
Yeah.
But in 1999, they're like, there are girl aliens and there are boy
When I was
aliens.
a little boy watching this movie, I definitely was like, girl, boy.
Yeah.
Girl, boy. I can tell because of their haircuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one gets shot and dies, and that incenses Alan Rickman to fist fight one of the aliens. Brandon
He also says the line that he swears he'll never say. I'm never
Yeah.
gonna say that line again.
Yeah.
But then he says it with the most like compassion.
Oh yeah.
Like the dramatic chops of Alan Rickman. He delivers it like it is a fucking Shakespearean play, and he also
Absolutely.
is saying it like he means it, which is
Yeah.
like he is going to avenge this.
Yeah.
guy. This
I
is-
always cry every time I see this. I cry
I teared up a little bit when
because I'm just like, because it's his character. I mean, it's Alan Rickman, but it's also like that character in that arc, and it's just
if it was
I'm
me,
a sucker for that stuff.
if I was playing this character,
Mhm.
I would have never fully learned the line properly, and I would have been by grandpa's hammer and the sons of your system, you shall be avenged.
Oh, I meant to say actually, one of the things I love about that character and the like what they did with him, the fact that they decided to put him in the prosthetic and leave it on through the whole movie is
battle damage.
It's yeah, like just as a kind of a reference to the actors who basically are unrecognizable without
Like a Gary Oldman or like somebody who loses themselves into it.
or Michael Dorn on Next Generation.
Yeah,
I mean,
Michael
like, you know, I mean, he could walk down the street and not get recognized, you know?
True, yeah.
And it's just that sort of, I love the idea that they were like, no, the alien guy is going to be the alien through the movie. And you don't even think about it.
Until his hair is
Yeah.
through, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I would think about. I thought about that as a kid, and I think about it now, where I'm like, does he not take it off? Because like they're clearly there for a few days, right? So he goes to sleep in this thing, like one of them breaks their arm, and then goes through enough time to heal. Like unless that's like a magical healing device that heals your arm in a couple hours, they got to have been there for like a few days, right? So he either took it off and then was like, bring me some makeup in my room, and like reapplied it because he does it himself, I assume.
Yeah.
So maybe he just puts it on every day. But I think you're right. Like they didn't want us to ever see him with his hair and stuff.
Yeah.
We were supposed to believe that he is.
Yeah, which is
Dr.
just
Lazarus. Yeah.
That's so great. Like it's just such a great choice. Like that they didn't try to do anything else with it. It's just that. Ooh, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, he can't escape the character. The show must go on. Like he's just he is that forever. I mean, like Leonard Nimoy with Spock.
Yeah, he stayed in that character the whole time. Like I like the idea of him taking or not even taking it off. Just leaving it on and going to bed, and then because there is a moment where Jason says to him like you gotta commit to the bit or whatever near the beginning, and he's like, "Damn you!"
Yeah,
he's trying to leave. So that is a really good point.
Imagine he's going to commit to the bit. I don't think he would have gone on if he said that. You got to commit to the bit.
Not commit to the bit, but you get my meaning, right?
Yeah.
He says the show must go on. Yeah,
The show must go on.
Yeah, that's the line. But
Commit to the bit.
it's like, you're not going to get me to go out there. And he's like, oh, yeah, what if I say commit to the bit?
What if I say yes and?
I never thought you would say commit.
Never thought you would do that.
Yep.
There is a
Brennan,
scene. I just want to bring it up for a second while we're talking about him, where they bring him to his sleeping quarters. This is another thing that makes me think that they're there for days, and it is fucked. So they walk in. They even finished like a bunch of the special effects, and like the guy walks in. He's like, "Here are your sleeping quarters, Dr. Lazarus," and he like, bloop, and like all these spikes out of the ground, like a bed of spikes, and he's like, and then like it shows the toilet, and the toilet looks like the toilet will fight you for your shit. Like
amazing.
It's gonna take it from you aggressively.
That's awesome.
Oh god. But it's a very short, like, you know, you have to sleep.
Oh, because there's his character.
Yeah, I guess his race sleeps on a giant bed of spikes, and they take a dump in a toilet that looks like you have to battle the toilet before you fight it.
He's like he lives in an H.R. Geiger painting, basically.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The thing that I thought was funny about this segment too is Brennan. His mom is like, take out the trash. His mom, played by Susan from Seinfeld.
Yes.
Notice that. He's taking out the trash. It causes them to almost die because the countdown gets right to 1. And it's like, that's what always happens on the show. So there's like things in this universe that are just happening on their own that are exactly like the show. And
I like that. And I love that still to this day. And like, you know, having seen the movie a bunch of times throughout my life, I remember that very clearly from there's a few moments that I remember more clearly than any from my first viewing of this movie. And that was one of them, where the concept of like a buzzer going down to 1 second and then them being like, it always went down to 1 second in the show is like, it's so clever. It's so clever and silly and smart. And I don't think I've seen it before this movie. If that was a gag beforehand, please let us know.
Yeah.
But like, this is the first time that I saw it, where it was like them freaking out because the timer doesn't stop and then it stops at 1. Clever and funny.
When they get back to the bridge, though, it is exactly like the show, and complete with Tawny having like being almost fully bare-chested because this zipper is just going down throughout the whole movie, throughout the whole movie, which I thought was a funny little touch. She's got battle damage. I think Alan Rickman's head prosthetic has battle damage. They've been through it. They've got cuts and scars all
how
over.
you noticed the zipper damage more than the head damage of Alan Rickman.
I didn't. I'm just saying it was a funny gag because the whole point of her character.
I didn't even notice it until you just brought it up. My whole life I didn't notice it. I'm noticing Alan Rickman's blonde hair sticking out of his wig and being like, "This is so good."
Oh no! I mean, she's got a piece ripped out up here too, but mostly it's the like.
Is it just the breasts? I watched.
No, because she's got it's like an underwear, like it's a push-up bra, but it's one of the ones with the really thin piece in the middle, so it's like there's not much there.
Well, now I have to rewatch this with.
She's zipped up all the way when they first get on the ship.
Yeah,
slowly goes down and down.
Slowly throughout the movie, going down and down until it's at the play button by the end, and that's like her. She's just the eye candy like woman character in the 80s, right? So but you're right. It's a good point that you made that she's aware of it and she leans into it because that's her bread and butter.
Idea for a lot of it was like the character is a bimbo, but the character she plays is a bimbo, but the character that she's playing the character is aware of it. Where I know what's going on here.
Yeah, it's great. And it's kind of like what Sigourney Weaver is like in real life because those stories about Alien where she was just like constantly had her no pants on and refused to trim down there, and they spent man hours like editing it out.
It's amazing.
She's like, this is what it would be like in space, man. I wouldn't be trimming, and also I wouldn't be wearing pants.
Yeah.
I was frozen today. This time the pilot is able to get through the minefield. They go back through the minefield to thwart Sarek, who's in pursuit. pretty good way to destroy the final boss. They drag the mine into the engine of Sarek's ship. Also, I've noticed that I didn't spell Sarek correct once, and I spelled variation of Saris 7 different ways throughout my notes.
Nice.
But I spelled Mathazar perfectly, so I don't know.
That just kind of pulls us back to when the guy who named the character Sarek was naming it after a movie critic who was like, as long as they spell my name correctly, I'm happy.
Yeah.
He spelled his name incorrectly the entire time through your review, which is good.
Yeah.
That guy hates me. Mathazar is still alive. His leg's all messed up. Jason gives him command again. They fly into a black hole to go back to their own, I guess, galaxy. Sarek is dressed as Fred and comes through the door and kills everybody, basically. And then they realize, oh, we can use that's the perfect 15 seconds.
Yeah, this is the moment that, like, actually, because the movie's over, right? We know they've won, and then they do.
Yeah, this is like the slasher thing where the hand comes up.
Yeah,
and then do
it
one
is.
final
Yeah,
stab.
but it's also there to pay off the device that knows what it does, and was the premise at the beginning. It's the premise at the end. I almost feel like it doesn't need to be there. Like, you really don't need it, but it is good, and it also is horribly frightening. This is a moment. This was happening to me as a child. Sitting there with my uncle, and I think my sister was there as well, but I don't remember. And I was freaked out because I was like, no, they won. Everyone's being shot. They're dying. They're dying.
Credits.
Yeah.
See, I love it because it is once again coming back to he knew to do that because the fan told him.
Yeah.
You know, which goes back to the fans. The
You're
love
right.
letter to the fans.
And I think that, like, that is paying off the fans. Stuff. It's paying off the stuff from the beginning, having them be there, and then having their theory and, like, everything being worshipped.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it is about the fans. The fans are the ones that let them live and be who they are. It's important for that, for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of the structure of a movie,
it
doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Why is it here? It's weighty and strange, but I do still like it. Like, I don't dislike it. I'm just in terms of the composition of a film. The movie's over, and they're just kind of redoing the same thing at the end. But I still like it, and I do also love when they crash into the convention center. Like,
oh my god, yeah,
it's very good.
And somehow they just think that that's part of the show.
Yep,
they think that them emerging from a crashed spaceship.
Oh, also
like,
in the original draft of this, them crashing in was going to decapitate like a bunch of people. Like, and I'm reading this being like, what? Like, why? And then they just do the show. Like, there's people with their heads cut off and no one.
Yeah.
And stuff. I'm like, this is like it's turned into a Paul Verhoeven movie.
Yeah, was this going to be a super dark comedy at one point?
Yeah.
They're so desensitized to violence that they're like, oh yeah, it's probably all part of the show.
That's
RoboCop
great.
shows up and he's like,
Yeah.
no, move, creep.
It's a commentary on, like, being desensitized to that kind of violence. So Kevin McDonald shows up. Was he the convention announcer at the beginning from Kids in the Hall? Or was he just in this part? Because I feel like I would have remembered
the
him.
announcer at the beginning of the movie was Guy.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So now it's Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall, which
probably because they couldn't get Guy. They're like, "Where's the Guy? He's not. He's usually always down to do these. Where the fuck's Guy? We gotta get Kevin McDonald." He's also playing himself. I checked in the credits.
Is he?
He's Kevin McDonald playing Kevin McDonald.
Oh,
that's amazing.
That is great.
They didn't even put him as like announcer number 2 or It's just like, no, you're just playing you. And he's like, yeah, I would be there. I would do that.
I would do that. That would be
that's wild.
If Galaxy Quest was a show, I would be there to announce for it. Yeah.
And it's great too because we get another small payoff where Jason Nesbitt does the role effectively.
Yes.
He rolls and shoots Sarek, which I was like, I like these. This movie has a great strength at setup and payoff.
I have something for that exact moment.
What? Oh.
That moment there where he rolls and shoots Sarek on stage and it blows up is the moment that people are like, we got to get this show back on the air. Like, there's some guy who's like, this is still a hot fucking show.
I love that. Yes.
did you see that alien? And they're like, give us the designs for that alien. We need to make that a villain.
Yeah, the special effects for that alien were amazing.
Continued adventure or whatever. Remember, it's not called the Next Generation. It's called like the Continued.
The quest continues or whatever.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
He does the big kiss with Gwen, which I don't really ship those two. They didn't have enough of the. They didn't have enough.
She clearly loves him, and he likes her a lot, and like sort of like energy, and throughout, and even when they're like about to die, he almost says like "I've always loved you," but he doesn't say.
That's true. Yeah.
And then when it doesn't go off, he runs away, and she's like, "Wait, what were you saying though? Like you were saying something about?"
Yeah.
It was one of those. It was one of those like it didn't necessarily need to be in it. Romances.
Yeah.
That happens from time to time.
Yeah.
But when you explain it like that, Steve, and
I think that also, I mean,
I agree though, Jason.
If they somehow made this movie exactly the same now, they might not put the romance in.
That's, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think at the time it just was, of course it's there,
They used to just put that like the early superhero movies before the MCU, they used to shoehorn in that.
Exactly.
You bring your girlfriend along. There's a great romance, which is an antiquated thought process now.
I almost feel though because it's so bookendy, like it's so at the end.
This is a bad example of that, but that was definitely a thing that
almost
happened.
Like these two probably had romances going back like a few.
Yeah.
There, and like. It's almost like they're old, like just let them kiss. Like
maybe there was more to it though, like cut scenes. Maybe
true.
You know what I mean? Cutting room floor, maybe in a script, and they just left that in because it's a nice final.
Yeah.
The hero kisses the.
I think it's mostly meant to like give us a little bit of hope that maybe the two of them will be happy together after this, and not so much that like. Anything that was happening in it meant much because they were both pretty strong and funny characters throughout, and they didn't need those moments where they like steal a kiss in the or something. Like who gives a fuck? And I think the movie knew that. They're like, we don't need it. And at the end, they're like, well, I guess we could throw it in. And they probably tested it over. There was probably moments where that didn't happen, and they probably tested in audience, and people are probably like, I really think like some old like,
you
should kiss at the end.
Like, okay, well, we didn't set that up at all, but okay, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever gets people into this theater to double the money that was spent on it. But that's basically the end of the movie. They get a new show, and then
we have the most amazing credit roll that is just all of the actors like being on the new
my god,
which is they all do something great. Like every single one of them is funny, and like if you look at them individually, they're all funny for their own merit. Like they do something, they're not all doing the same thing, they're all doing something different, and they're all doing something that is like both in character for what we've seen and completely out of character for like we know they're like making it up for the show. Like we've seen them on their adventure, we know that they would do some of what they're doing, but then they're doing something like when Tommy Weber like turns around and he smiles and then he goes like, what does that mean? And you're like, oh, it means pedal to the metal. He's saying pedal to the metal. That's
and introducing Rock Ingersoll, and he's like,
it's amazing.
His name is Guy. His name is Guy in the show. Like the character's name is Guy too.
Guy Rock Ingersoll.
Fleegman. Guy Fleegman.
Yeah.
And he just
So we just have a couple little things before we let you go, Jenny. Is that
no worries?
Okay?
Oh my god, yes.
Awesome. Yes. We got through the movie. It took as long as I thought it was going to, because it's a content dense movie it's only 40 minutes, but everything is worth talking about. It's one of those. We've had the opposite. We did Fire in the Sky, and you'd think there would be lots to talk about, but there's not with the same length of a movie, and we struggled to fill 2 hours. So sometimes they can't all be conversation dense. But the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to talk about the Home Alone of it all.
Oh, you had to pick one.
What do you think the Home Alone
is the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone?
I really got to know.
When is the Home Alone of it all?
What is the Home Alone of it all? Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
So the Home Alone of it all is sort of a theory that I put together that when you go see the movie Home Alone, you're waiting for Kevin to slap the blueprint down on the table and set up the traps for Harry and Murph. A lot of movies I've noticed sort of have that. Steve took it one step further. He said it's a lot of the times it's like the trailer sort of outlines what you're going to see the movie for. Sometimes it's literally the third act.
Right.
Now, I'll go first just to sort of give you an example. My Home Alone of it all for this movie was when basically when they get to the beryllium planet and they get into like full fleet mode and they're failing, but we're now in like their universe and we're seeing them do Star Trek-y Galaxy Quest stuff. So since you're the guest, you go next. If you it doesn't have to be,
I think for me, it's a little bit earlier, but it's when they're sort of discovering the ship, when they're actually like when all of a sudden they're realizing like all of this stuff is real, and the stuff that we did on the show is us, but it's also real, and it's just sort of that sort of moment of like, wow,
No, yeah, that's.
Because that for me is the point where I'm like, yes, I am in. This is like, yeah.
Okay, great. No, that's absolutely that's good. How about
awesome.
You,
my Home Alone of it all. Sorry, the police are after me again. I'm a bank robber.
Shouldn't say that on the internet.
I know, right?
My Home Alone of it all is when they go into the back of the Radio Shack and she is like, "Oh, you guys would like to come too?" And they're like, "Yeah." And she's like, "All right, I'll talk to you again when I'm back on the ship." And then she like disappears. That's the part where I'm like, "Oh, this is the Home Alone. This is the Home Alone." They rang the Home Alone of it all bell. Ding diddle diddle ding 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 diddle ding. Yeah, here we go.
Well, yeah, we used to use the theme. That theme from Home Alone, but we got copyright strike too many times. So
yeah, when she disappears and they're all like, "She just disappeared." That's for me. That's the Home Alone of it all.
Nice.
They all realize at the same moment that she was a hologram.
Yeah. Okay. We have two more little things we got to do. The first thing being the hit game show that everybody's watching.
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
So this one's kind of a tough explanation, but every movie, of course, has a MPAA certificate rating. Okay.
Yes.
That's that number that goes up at the end of the screen. It indicates that the movie's been rated by the MPAA. Right. Just to give you some additional context, our old co-host just used to say it, but I gamified it because why not?
Yeah.
So basically what I'm going to do is it's a 5-digit number, okay? I'm going to give you the first two numbers. All you have to do is guess a number between 0 and 999. And then you'll go back and forth twice, and then you'll probably get it wrong. So just give me a number. The first two numbers are 3, 7, completely inconsequential.
Okay.
But all you have to do is give us a number between 0 and 999.
3 digits.
Jenny, please go first. I'll tell you if it's higher or lower also.
452.
Lower. Steve.
500.
Lower. No, she said like 400 or something.
Oh, I thought you said 7052.
No, I said 452.
Oh. Can I choose again?
Yes.
Okay. 300.
Lower.
295.
And Steve, final guess, lower.
1 1 1.
You gotta hit the fire alarm.
Uh-oh. Where is the fart alarm?
Oh! It is the total number this week. The MPAA certificate rating number is 37085. So you were
Amazing.
completely wrong.
Amazing.
085, 85, eh?
Hmm.
I should have picked 100.
We got to hit that sting, Steve.
Oh God! The
This is also part of it.
MPAA, everyone.
I love it.
The MPAA. Wow. Wow.
The wow.
Wow.
Royal we
That's
do.
amazing. Oh my god.
And with that, it's time for our final thoughts.
Ooh.
It's time for our final thoughts.
The rules are simple. Basically, just give in summation your final thought. If you want to give it some sort of rating, I do out of 5. You could do it. You could give it a fake comedy rating for fun and for glory. But just like at the beginning, the guest is chosen by me to go first. Jenny, what's your final thought on Galaxy Quest?
I love this movie. As a Star Trek fan, this movie is absolutely one of the greatest Star Trek movies ever made. It is a love letter to not only the franchise but also the fans. And it, like, every single time, not only when Alexander, does the thing and makes me like tear up at that point, but I cry at the end of this movie every single time because it just gets me, because it just shows what an amazing thing that the Star Trek franchise is. Like they're literally they're bringing actors from this movie, some of the Thermians, to the Trek convention in Vegas this year. There's a screening of Galaxy Quest that's happening on like Friday night. It's part of the fandom, and it's just I'm so excited to have gotten to talk about it at this length with you guys. Like I'm just beside myself. I'm so happy. This is a 5 out of 5 movie for me. Like no complaints. I honestly, watching it last night again, I was like this is as good as I remember, if not better, every time I watch it. Like, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
The Spaceballs of Star Trek. That's a pretty good.
Yeah. Except more sincere. In no way is there any kind of like punching down happening. Like it's all an homage. It's satire, but it's not satire. It's just
Imagine there was a part where Sarek was like,
Have I introduced you to Galaxy Quest, the flamethrower?
that'd be pretty good.
Oh my god, yeah.
Sorry. I forgot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Steve, your final thoughts for Galaxy Quest, the major motion picture.
Well, like all movies this month, I've picked something that is very special to me, something that is close to my heart, something that every time I watch, I feel good and happy and nice. And this movie is part of that. There's maybe like a padding of like 20 movies in my life that I can watch and feel like I'm being transported back in time to a time where I can just feel happy about something that I'm watching and never have to worry about anyone really ever shitting on it because they existed within that padding. And I was also in that padding when they were coming out. So it's good. It's nice. I had a very special experience watching this the first time I watched it. And that doesn't necessarily translate to every time I watched it, but every time I watch it, I do feel good. And it does make me feel better about my fandom of Star Trek. It makes me feel more connected to Star Trek. It opened up Star Trek to me in a way that I didn't really feel comfortable with for a long time. There was a time in the late 90s where you either liked Star Trek or you liked Star Wars, and you weren't really allowed to like both at the same time. even though I did like both at the same time. I was like, I like Star Wars more because it's wizards and shit, and it's more fanciful. But like you were allowed to like Star Trek. You just had to like secretly talk about it. Be like, did you guys watch that new episode of Star Trek? That was pretty good.
Yes.
But I think this movie is something that might not resonate the same way with younger people now that it did with younger people then. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't give it a shot. And I think that as we were talking about, con fandom and just like the community that exists around it now, probably lessened the stigmatism to con culture in its own time, because it was stigmatized for a long time, even up until like I was even in my like late teens and early 20s. I was always like, I should probably not go to that because people will think I'm weird. But it's like, I still went and I just didn't tell people. What did you do this weekend? I stayed at home and played Call of Duty, and I said a bunch of racist and homophobic stuff online. That's what I did. Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I was at a con being really friendly to somebody dressed as all my favorite characters and asking if I could take pictures. I think this movie it succeeds in every single thing that it tries to accomplish, and that's something that not a lot of movies can do. So I think this movie should be watched by everyone, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but if you do like it, you can be my friend. And again, if you don't like it, go fuck yourself, you son of a bitch. If I was to give this something, I would give this 3 Klingons peeing at a urinal and one man standing with his arms entirely straight with another guy on the other side clapping. That's what I give it.
Really sorry.
Thank you, Steve. I think for me, I'll be brief because I'm sort of reeling from thinking I had seen the movie, thinking I knew what the movie was, and realizing I had a lot to learn from this film.
Amazing.
I think that you guys are envious of me a little bit because I did get to watch it for the first time so much later in life than you guys did. I have this different like sort of view of it because I have the 20 years of the history of these shows sort of to related to, where back then it was really just Star Wars and TOS and TNG and the offshoots, the other shows that were on, like Babylon 5 was on and stuff, and Stargate, and I just like, I really enjoyed it. I thought that, like Steve said, like you guys pretty much covered everything. Like everything worked. There wasn't a lot of stuff that was like, that's stupid, unless it was like intentionally stupid. If it was like a pratfall or like a who's on first style joke, that kind of stuff will always make me laugh. And it's dumb because comedy is like a subjective art that allows you to find those points that you know are supposed to be funny. And this movie executes on those things and doesn't make them like breathes new life into those elements. Mystery Men was another one that really fired on all cylinders in a similar way that I watched. I had seen that movie. That's a movie I've seen a million times, but rewatching it after not seeing it for so many years, I had a similar reaction. So I give this movie a 4.1 out of 5. I don't really explain that stuff. That's what I rate it. I give this movie. So tonight while I was doing the podcast, I had a ginger beer.
Nice.
And I had a Skittles nightmare drink.
Oh my god.
And on the scale of ginger beer to Skittles nightmare drink, you would think I have diabetes. Yeah. No, you would think I give it the ginger beer, but this is Star Trek. This is like serious. And it's a little bit spicy and it's kind of for adults. It's not alcoholic, right? But I give this movie Skittles because it's fun and it's fruity and it's weird and I paid too much money to drink it. Yes, Tim, that is a real drink. I have 2 other ones that represent 2 other Skittles flavors. I saw it in the convenience store downstairs, and I'm not going to say how much I paid for the real thing. Thank you. And Chucky. Chucky's always watching.
Amazing.
Just before we get out of here, Jenny, I want to give you the official "Hey, did you see this one?" seal of approval. You're welcome to come back anytime you would like.
Thank you.
You have been a fantastic guest for putting up with us for 3 full hours. You know, like I was saying, sometimes like we fill 3 hours, and sometimes we don't. We often do. But
Yeah.
I was concerned that maybe this movie didn't have 3 hours of content to talk about. And then I watched it.
It
I
does,
was like,
yeah.
oh, we could probably talk about this movie for another hour if we didn't all have lives. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. This was awesome. This was so fun. Like,
This
yeah.
was a lot of fun. We've
You
been
got a nice operation you're running here, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
This
is fantastic.
You said some nice stuff to me earlier today about how we conduct business with our guests, and I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
I've gone on podcasts and it's like, what are we doing here? What am I supposed to do? And I want to give people, tell them what they're in for beforehand, especially with all these weird little gimmicks we've built.
Yeah, I like the gimmicks. This was delightful from beginning to end. Yeah.
Some people give us this look when we do it. That said, we're gonna do some plugs now. Jenny, why don't you tell us about what you're up to? If you have anything you'd like to plug, this is your time for that.
Oh, jeepers. All right. Well, I am an artist. I paint things. I paint geeky things. And you can find all of those things, through my website. Yeah, exactly. JennyRJohnson.com. That's like the portal to everything. Exactly. And you can also, I'm working on this like giant 4-foot Enterprise D painting. And I'm updating on my social media, my Instagram for sure. I'm working on getting back on TikTok. So you can find me in both of those places at Jenny R. Johnson Art. And I'm even over on stinky old, the ghost of Twitter. But you can find me there at Jenny R. Johnson.
I'm floating around the corpse.
Yeah, I'm sort of. I've built like a firewall of mutes and blocks around this little tiny Star Trek community that I exist in on Twitter. Yeah.
We've tried to, like, I pretty much run all the social media, and I've tried to do threads, and I've tried to do Twitter, and those ones are hard to get into. I find it easier when you show a picture to get engagement than
totally
talk, like say things. Anyway, well, thank you so much. Why don't we give Jenny another round of applause, because we like to use the buttons.
Thank you. I love the buttons.
Also,
Steve,
Jenny, follow me. I'm an artist too. I'm all right. I'm pretty all right.
It's true. He is very good.
Awesome.
Do artists collaborate? Is that a thing that happens?
Sometimes,
yeah. All I do is talk. That's my claim to fame. You can actually catch me tomorrow night at Super Kicked here in Toronto. I'm a professional wrestling announcer, and we have a show tomorrow night called Super Kick Presents NFG. I don't know what it stands for, but there are 3 hardcore matches, 1 6-man ladder match, 1 cage match, 1 triple threat tables match. And I'll be there, and my name's Jason. And I'll be saying things like, the following contest is scheduled for 1 fall, except for much louder than that. Steve, do you have anything you want to plug?
Follow Darth Theorist on YouTube. It's a thing where I do a lot of voices and narration. Water's a Lust on Instagram. I just did a Java series. People are liking my Javas. Come by my Javas.
It's true.
Awesome.
They're funny and they're fun. And one final thing here, you can find us on all social media. Hey, did you see this one? We are a member of the United Federation of Podcasts. You can watch Graphic Histories, a podcast about graphic novels and comic books. We also have Trivial Debates, a weekly panelist sort of debate, trivia sort of hybrid thing, where one person is the judge and 3 people sort of vie for their love and adoration. We also have X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. They just wrapped up X-Men 97. All of that's good content. X-Men is back in a major way now that Marvel owns them. We have the Live Long and Podcast series of podcasts. Those are basically people talking about Star Trek. I'm gonna put in a word for you, Jenny, to get on basically all of these.
I've been on Live Long and Podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, you've already been on the United Federation.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, oh, that sounds familiar.
That sounds familiar. Yeah, that's great. So, because I think like maybe Chris Murphy, maybe because he's from Halifax.
Maybe Devin. Yeah.
3-hour podcast, Devin. 3-hour podcast. Anyway, speaking of Davin, Hold Up, a movie podcast. We talk about one movie in 3 hours. They managed to talk about 3 movies in 2 hours. There's Amen on Track, which is a music podcast where they go through different albums. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet or watch it, but it is a thing that I like to talk about. So let's get me on there.
Nice.
We can talk about the Mars Volta. And of course, hey, did you see this one? The show you're watching right now. We are live on Twitch each and every week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is the show. And now I'm going to try this, but I didn't warn you beforehand, and I should have. And this usually goes bad when I don't warn the guest beforehand. But okay, I'm going to try to lead the witness a little bit. There's one question that we have to ask each and every week. Okay? Why don't you ask that question for us, Jenny? Why don't you ask the question?
Hey, did you see this one?
Oh my god!
It worked.
I wasn't ready. I can't believe you actually got it.
I can't believe it worked. It worked. It worked over here. It never worked.
I'm quick.
You are quick on the draw. Thanks again. Steve, you got anything funny you want to say for the thanks for watching screen?
Hey, by Ragnar's hammer. Thanks for watching.